My shady, entitled supervisor fired me for no reason while also withholding money from me from 2 paychecks. So I decided to get some petty revenge by literally getting him fired by exposing him for the shady crook that he really was, which thankfully led me to getting my job back and that guy getting kicked out with his tail between his legs. Here's what happened. When I was 22 years old, I worked at a small auto shop under a newly hired supervisor who we will call Charlie for the sake of the story. He was quite rude to customers, mostly mistreated employees, and withheld 2 of my paychecks, daring me to complain. So I decided to stay quiet, thinking that I'd lose my job. Then I overheard him bragging about rolling back odometers, and with this I started documenting everything: shady titles, fake bills, receipts of 3 months worth of evidence. Well, fast forward and eventually, Charlie fired me without paying what he owed me. I planned to reach out to the owner, a decent man who had no idea what was happening, but his office was at a different location. However, he would visit the shop mostly to collect the weekly collections. He would also treat the staff with complimentary snacks or like a small-time pizza party, stuff like that. So I went straight to the owner. I handed him a neatly organized folder and I told him everything that Charlie did. The owner assured me that I would get my job back, but asked for some time so that he could investigate the matter thoroughly. Well, 2 weeks later, I got a call from the owner and he told me to come down to the shop. He then stormed into the shop with a few bouncer-like people. The owner contacted most of our customers who were treated rudely, took their feedback, and then made some notes. And I was confident enough that the owner had considered my evidences during his investigations. Now, what happened with Charlie, you might be wondering? The bouncers with the owner grabbed his collar and threw him right out of the shop. He then walked away with a puppy face and like a dog with his tail between his legs. One of my coworkers replaced him, and the shop eventually turned into a genuinely pleasant place to work. And for years after that, we would joke about this dark chapter because, my God, it was a crazy experience. Dude, the original poster got so lucky in my opinion because holy crap. Sometimes these kind of supervisors just don't get the axe when they absolutely should. They're these toxic people who do shady stuff behind your back. They're always like doing things to you to try and get you in trouble. And then eventually you're the one that gets the short end of the stick and then you get fired. But thankfully karma was on your side because this guy got exactly what he deserved, especially when he's doing shady stuff on the clock. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for wanting to lock my bathroom door after I found out that my brother's girlfriend has been ransacking all of my makeup and all of his kids have been destroying my bathroom on a daily basis? Because right now I'm really frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. I'm a 34-year-old female who lives in a roommate split apartment with my mom. This arrangement started shortly after COVID, mostly because my friend group lacked responsible roommate candidates. They were constantly job hopping and bickering over petty things, and initially it was a good situation because my mom treats me like an adult. She respects my boundaries and acted as a roommate in every sense. However, this year, my brother fell on hard times and had to move in with us, along with his girlfriend and several young children. This was supposed to be a temporary arrangement, but it's now been 6 months and I just don't see an end to it. The living space is cramped, but for the most part, everyone respects my personal space except for his girlfriend. She regularly uses my products and leaves them empty without replacing them. She also leaves a mess in my bathroom and lets their kids play in the bathroom unsupervised. The one thing that drives me the most crazy is that she uses the last of the toilet paper, and instead of replacing the roll, she uses non-flushable wipes in my toilet. And this has caused the toilet to overflow at least 4 times since they've been here. Now, to make matters worse, the trash is never taken out, even when she constantly puts sanitary products in it. I've tried being nice and asking for my space and to be respected, but she doesn't listen. I've tried being less nice, but that hasn't worked either. I've even tried removing products from the bathroom, but I don't have enough space, and I don't think it's fair to have to operate like I'm living in a dorm in a space I'm splitting the bills for, especially since someone who's offered no contribution is still causing problems. So is it wrong that I now want to put a lock on my bathroom door? The original reason I tried to avoid this situation was the number of people in my house, but it's getting to the point where every time I go to my bathroom, another product is empty, another mess is left, and multiple limited edition makeup palettes have all been pretty much ruined. And not once has there been any offer to replace anything. I work 2 jobs and I regularly come back to my bathroom to find it destroyed. So would I be the jerk if I put a lock on it? Because right now I don't know what to do. Yeah, this sounds super obnoxious. I would hate being in this kind of situation, especially when you consider the fact that you're helping them out. You're literally allowing them to live in your space and they're taking advantage of you. So first of all, I would definitely try to figure out how long they're going to be living there for and when they're basically going to be leaving. Like, it's been 6 months and I think it might be time for them to move on and find a better space because you guys could not be expected to accommodate what they've got going on. But also, if I was in your shoes, I absolutely would be like, okay, I'm putting a lock on this door until further notice, because the way they're acting, in my opinion, is completely out of line and you do not deserve to put up with this for a second. Am I the jerk for planning an international travel without my children, explaining to them that they can't go with me because they chose to have custody with their mom instead of being with me? Because right now I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong and I just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so here's the reality. I have 2 kids and they're now 14 and 16 years old, and I've had 50% custody ever since I got divorced up until a few months ago. 4 years ago, my ex-wife got remarried and her husband advised her to start a custody dispute. I spent $165,000, which was basically my entire life savings, fighting for 4 years. For the record, my ex-wife's father is wealthy and paid all her legal fees, and this will come into play later on. The older child told the court-appointed therapist, I want to live with my mom and only see my dad every other weekend, and the younger one just said they wanted to do 50% custody. But the younger one suddenly changed their minds and said, oh, maybe 70% with my mom. I just want court stuff to be over with. I went to trial, my attorney fought like crazy, but the judge said, well, given the child's age, their preference will take precedent, and we won't split them up as it will break their sibling bond. Well, my wife and I have been planning some travel with some of her friends, as well as her sister and their husbands. It includes 9 days in Spain and France. They picked the dates and we got tickets. The kids then found out about it and have been asking me, we want to go, why can't we go as well? But I told my children, look, this is something that we planned, we saved for it. They then asked me if it was an adult-only trip, and I told them that it was not, and that their 15-year-old cousin was also coming. They said it was not fair we couldn't take them, as they know that we can afford it, and that it would be their only chance to travel internationally. But I told them, look, you're adults now. You chose to spend the majority of your time with your mother, and you got what you wanted. But choices have consequences, and one of them is that you don't get to join me on things like this. Well, they're now both very upset, and my younger one said, well, you're just mad that we had more fun at mom's house. I'm afraid I might be the jerk here, but I'm happy to be wrong. But my gut is telling me what I'm doing is fair, but even still, I simply don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, I think the original poster is a massive jerk. You literally blame this on your kids choosing to go with their mom instead of you. And I'm sorry, that is so out of pocket and so incredibly rude. You don't blame kids for that stuff. That's already stressful enough. They're being torn between their 2 parents and it's like, dude, what do you expect them to do? So yes, I think the original poster is definitely the jerk, especially how they basically threw their kids right under the bus. Am I the jerk for refusing to drive my friend to class every single morning after they sold their car so that they could buy concert tickets? Because right now he is very frustrated that I don't want to help him out, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my friend and I go to the same university, but we live in different neighborhoods about 30 minutes apart, and up until recently we both drove ourselves. Well, last month my friend decided to sell his car to buy concert tickets and some merch for his favorite DJ that he's gonna see. I thought it was kind of impulsive, but it is his money and he can do whatever he wants. Well, this week he started asking me to drive him to class every morning, and I didn't really mind giving him a ride once or twice when it was on my way, but then it turned into an everyday expectation. My friend calls me every night to make sure that I'm still picking him up, and last night he called me again and I hesitated. He didn't really seem to get me there, and he even said, well, you're driving there anyways, it's not that big of a deal. But here's the thing, picking my friend up isn't just a small detour, it adds about an hour to my round trip, and I end up rushing to find parking and settle before class. Also, he's not sharing any money for gasoline, so I told him directly that I can't be his daily driver, especially since I have my own schedule and part-time job to juggle. But my friend just kept saying, oh, it's not cool, bro, that is not cool. But I reminded him that selling his car and buying concert tickets was also not cool if you can't afford it. It's not my responsibility to cover for him. He then cut off the call while I was still talking to him, and honestly, I don't think I'm wrong on my side of things, but I do want him to be responsible and not use me as his daily driver. So am I the jerk here? Because I am incredibly frustrated right now. Okay, I think it's pretty obvious, but no, of course you're not the jerk. This guy's out of his mind. You mean to tell me that this guy sold his car to get concert tickets, and now he's trying to be like, you need to drive me to and from class, please. It's like, no, dude, that's not my responsibility. Why should I have to do that? Like, that is so crazy in my opinion. So no, you are not the jerk, and your friend is a complete idiot. And the fact that they thought this was a good idea speaks volumes about their intelligence. Am I the jerk for paying for my dog's surgery instead of using that money to help my girlfriend's sister with her rent? Because right now my girlfriend is chewing me out over this, and I honestly just don't know what to do. Okay, so I have a dog that's on the older side at about 9 years old, and a few weeks ago it lost the use of its back legs. I had to get surgery for him because I was not going to be putting him down. All in all, it came out to be about $9,000, all of which I had to pay out of pocket for. Now, this wasn't a huge problem because I have plenty saved up, and in general, I am pretty well off. But here's the real issue that's going on. My girlfriend's sister has been struggling with rent. Apparently, she's been behind by a few months, and she's panicking about being kicked out. When my girlfriend found out that I had paid for the surgery, she got really upset with me. She then called me selfish. Her words were along the lines of, "You would spend $8,000 on a dog, but you won't even help my sister keep a roof over her head." Ever since then, my girlfriend has been pissed off with me and keeps calling me cheap and selfish for not helping her sister. I feel like I shouldn't have to suffer for another person's poor life choices. The reason her sister is in this predicament is because her relationship fell apart and she's living in a place that she can't afford. Further to that, I own a 4-bedroom home, and my girlfriend suggested that her sister move in with us, but I simply refused that. So seriously, am I the jerk here because I don't know what to do or what to make of this situation? First off, no, you are not the jerk, but the fact that you saved your dog's life is somehow a slight against her sister is insane in my opinion. Like, that's a crazy leap in logic, dude. What is going on right now? You did what you had to do to save your dog, and your girlfriend is trying to be like, well, what about my sister? How dare you? And I don't know about you, but I kind of take that as a big red flag. Like, how could your girlfriend not care about a dog that's dying? I don't know, that's just really sketchy in my opinion, and at least like the bare minimum of like a litmus test of whether someone's a good person or not. So if I was in this scenario, I would be questioning probably just about everything about my relationship with my girlfriend, especially if she said something like this, along with her being like, okay, we need to move my sister in, because that's some crazy talk and not something I would ever ignore. A group of entitled teenagers tried to cut the line at Disneyland right as me and my wife were about to jump on the ride. But instead of just letting it slide, I decided to speak up, forcing these stupid idiots to go back to the end of the line. Here's what happened. About 2 weeks ago, my large family took a trip to Disneyland, and in total there is about 22 of us. My wife and I have 3 younger children who aren't big enough to ride all the rides, but fortunately, given our group size, some adults could stay with them while we got to ride some of the other larger and more popular rides. So it was our turn to ride the Smuggler's Run in Star Wars, and the wait time was manageable. We're talking like maybe 45 minutes. About halfway into it, 3 young teenage girls walked past us. One was on her phone, and the other 2 were smiling and drinking their drinks. They at least had the decency to say, "Excuse me," but they literally hopped a couple of barriers and met up with some friends that I assume were the ones the girl was on the phone with. And I just think to myself, okay, no big deal, that doesn't bother me. Out of sight, out of mind. Now, my wife and I are near the front of the line, and we're part of the next group to get on the ride. The doors open, and it's finally our turn. As we were literally about to walk on, 3 more girls show up and say, "Excuse me," and walk right past us into the waiting area. The Disney worker then asks them, "How many are in your group?" And one girl says 3, and another says 6, and another is just smiling and drinking her drink. I then put the pieces together, and I realized they were part of the other group of teenagers, who also, by the way, were wearing the similar high school mascot shirts, who also cut the line and were looking to meet up with them. But that group had already got on the ride. These girls had cut the entire line and were about to take the last available seats. Now, after waiting 45 minutes and getting cut in front of at the last possible moment, I was not going to let it slide. So I spoke up. I said, "Wow, you girls cut the entire line and expect us to be cool with that?" The Disney worker looks at me and then at my wife, and then she explains to her that the girls cut the entire line and it wasn't fair to everyone else who had been patiently waiting. After hearing that information, the worker calmly looked at them and told them that they needed to leave and that they needed to head back to the end of the line and wait like everybody else. And then she waved my wife and I in to go on the ride. It was a small victory, but I was glad to see those grins wiped off their faces because what they were trying was completely unacceptable. Okay, I love the fact that you spoke up, but holy crap, you should have done it the first time. I don't care what's going on, and I don't care that they're teenagers. Anyone cutting in line at an amusement park, especially one that's overcrowded like Disneyland, like holy crap, that is a cardinal sin, and that is absolutely not going to fly in my book. But regardless, good for you for speaking up because these people absolutely deserve to get shut down. Am I the jerk for not sharing my specific diagnosis after I was asked about it during a presentation? Because even though I'm physically disabled, I still choose to keep my personal medical information private, as it is a private matter that I don't want to discuss with people. But now I'm second guessing my decision, and I honestly just don't know if I'm in the wrong. Here's what happened. Okay, for a tiny bit of background, I am physically disabled. I walk with a slight limp, I use use crutches and braces many days, and I also have some substantial scars, although often covered by my clothing. Most days, a stranger could see that I am different, but may not really know what it is so different about me. A couple of semesters ago, I was taking a required class in college, and I discovered it was basically woodshop class, which by the way is not easy when I'm using crutches and such. I got to know the professor pretty well, and he was amazingly accommodating and ended up making a lot of changes to the shop just to accommodate me. He reached out to me a while ago and explained that he was teaching a class that focused on designing for clients and wondered if I was willing to come in and speak about my experiences being disabled and then serve as the client. Now, I'm a huge fan of advocating through sharing stories, so I agreed pretty quickly. So I went in and I spoke about my day-to-day experiences, the tiny bits of inaccessibility on campus that add up for me, the way I'm treated by others, etc. I was focusing on how my disability affects my life rather than what my disabilities are. So notably, I didn't give my diagnosis. But then I met with each group of students and I talked about what they could design that would help me out. The point was for them to notice a challenge and offer a solution. I was meeting with one group and one of the students asked me what my diagnosis was. I said to them, well, I have a few, but I prefer not to share them as that is personal medical information. The student kind of rolled his eyes and said something along the lines of, well, how am I supposed to design something for you if I don't know what's wrong with you? And this obviously took me back and frankly stung a little bit. Is it wrong for me to share about my experiences without sharing my diagnosis? I can see how my words can mean less if people don't know the name of what's wrong with me, but it felt like this was supposed to be more about my experience than the disabilities themselves. I honestly feel very torn. So am I the jerk here because I really just don't know what to do? No, you're not the jerk here. This is so insensitive. This guy was completely out of line asking that, and his reasoning behind it was just really intrusive. You can still help someone who has like disabilities and like movement issues without getting into the specifics that, yeah, are incredibly personal. So no, the original poster is not a jerk because this guy was completely out of line. Am I the jerk for not giving a stray cat back to the original owner after I found it and took care of it for the past 9 months? Because right now, I'm not sure if I'm making a mistake. Here's what's going on. Okay, so a feral cat colony lives in my neighborhood, and I often trap them to be spayed and neutered. In December of 2024, I trapped an adult tuxedo cat. I was planning on neutering it and releasing him, but he was so loving. I brought him inside for a flea bath, and he would not stop hugging me, like literally putting both arms around my neck. After taking him to the vet, I saw he wasn't neutered or microchipped and had tapeworms as well. I assumed he was a friendly stray who lived in the colony, and I just decided to keep him. Well, fast forward 9 months, and a friend sent me a Facebook post on a local community page of a woman claiming that she was missing her cat. A picture showed a male tuxedo, and she even said that he loved to give hugs. And when I saw that, I knew it was him, because he has a distinct white spot in the middle of his forehead. And when I saw this, I was shocked. She said she knew it was a long shot since he went missing in December, but she was not aware of the Lost Pet Facebook page, only the local shelter, who was not much help since he never made it there, because instead he made it to my house. I feel so guilty because she is probably thinking the worst happened to him, and I wish I could tell her that he's safe, but I know if I did, she would want him back. My friend thinks that giving him back is the right thing to do, but he has the best home with me and has bonded with my cats and I. In the lady's post, she said her 4-year-old daughter misses him and that he was their beloved outdoor and indoor cat. I truly feel bad for the owner's daughter. However, the woman does not sound like a good cat owner. It is not legal in our city to let our cats roam, and on top of that, it's extremely dangerous for them. Also, he was in bad condition and not neutered at all, so I think it's very irresponsible that she was letting him outside just to reproduce and expand the colony near our homes. He is just so happy with me, and I would hate for him to end up missing or pass away as a part-time outdoor cat. So am I the jerk here for pretending like I never saw the post in the first place? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, I don't think the original poster is a jerk at all. It sucks for the kid, sure, but that lady on Facebook is clearly not a good pet owner. She was letting the cat roam free in the neighborhood without like neutering it first, and that's completely irresponsible. Like, that's how you run into a situation where it's like, oh, there's a colony of cats in the area. That's not healthy for anybody, and it's just gonna get other animals sick. So no, you're not the jerk. I think in my opinion, you should keep the cat because clearly you're a way better owner than this other lady. An entitled Karen tries to make her own line, all because she doesn't want to wait in the main line for all of us to get our travel visas for our passports, resulting in several people having their days ruined, all because this Karen tried to do something that was, in essence, incredibly dumb. Here's what happened. Okay, so this morning I was in line at a consult for a travel visa, and you had to show up with all your paperwork and wait in line pretty much forever. If all your paperwork is in order, you leave your passport and all your documents with them for processing and come back when it's ready to be picked up with a visa added. Now, I was advised to show up early because the line is insanely long and it moves very slowly, so I got there an hour before it opened and there was still like 10 people or so ahead ahead of me. About a half hour before opening time, a woman approached me, she looked at the line, which at this point extended around the block, and then stood next to the first person in line. About 10 minutes later, someone walked up and asked her if she was in the pickup line, and she said yes. So the second person lined up behind her. A few more people trickled in and asked if it was the pickup line, and a couple of other people overheard and got out of the main line just to stand behind her in the pickup line, which by the way, I'm pretty sure is not even real. At 9:30 sharp, when the guard came out, he took one look at the second line and said, "One line, people." Now, if the first woman had stood in line when she arrived, rather than deciding that she could make her own line, she would have been like the 30th person in line. But when the guard sent her back to the end of the line, it was already 100 people deep. So I gotta be honest, that was really enjoyable to watch. But I do feel bad for the poor people who assumed the pickup line was a real thing and stood behind her and just lost their spot in the real line, because this entitled Karen's fake line literally ruined a lot of people's days, but unfortunately, I really enjoyed watching it happen. Oh man, that's so weird. Like, first of all, you've got to know that you're going to be standing there pretty much forever if you're going to get like a visa, or if it's going to involve anything with your passport. Like, holy crap, it'll take you the rest of your life just to get that figured out. And while I've never gone through that kind of experience myself, I could say that I've gone through the DMV more than my fair share of times, and that alone was a nightmare to deal with, so I can only imagine it was probably similar to that, if not just a little bit worse. So yeah, this Karen caused a lot of people to have problems, and that could have been avoided if they were simply patient and waited in line like everybody else. My brother commits fraud at my expense by purchasing 2 new iPhones with my credit card without my consent. And when I confront him about this, my stepmother has the audacity to blame me for him committing fraud. And I honestly could not be more disgusted. Here's what happened. So to start off with some background, my half-brother is an addict and has stolen from pretty much everyone in the family. My dad and stepmom were separated and living in different states, and my brother lived with my dad. I live in a completely different state as well. My dad is super conservative, so most of my family is also super conservative. And in contrast, I'm not conservative in the slightest. Now, since my brother can't hold down a job, I paid for his cell phone so we would have some kind of way just to contact him. Otherwise, he would disappear and no one would hear from him again for months at a time. He asked me if I could add his girlfriend to my plan. I said fine, but they need to buy their own phones. So I started the process. They were supposed to buy the phones and have them activated. Well, I got a call from my brother saying they can't activate the phone. So I tell him to have the store call me, but he said that they couldn't do that. So I called my provider and they said that he shouldn't have a problem activating it. I called him back again and I tell him exactly what I was told by my provider. This literally goes on for 2 days, just a back and forth over and over again. He keeps trying to get me to add him as an authorized user. He must have called me dozens of times. I finally got sick of the calls and called my phone company and said to add him as an authorized user, but to only activate the phone and then to immediately remove him. I specifically said he is not allowed to make any purchases. The person on the other line assured me that this is what they would do. A few weeks later, I look at my phone bill and they charged 2 brand new iPhones, extra chargers, charging pads, cases, screen protectors. All of this went to my bill. I call the phone company and they said that he was added, so there's nothing they could do about it. I call my brother and he just laughed. I told him to take it all back right away, but he said no. We got into an argument and he got angry and said to me, "Now I'm not gonna pay any of it back ever again at all." He then said that he hopes this tanks my credit. I then responded with some not so nice words and I just hung up on him. 5 minutes later, my stepmom calls me up and said that I need to apologize to my brother. And at that point, I just started laughing. And I said that I'll apologize when he takes the phone back and gives me my money back. She said he's not going to do that. But apparently to her, he deserves it because of what I said, saying that I'm a horrible sibling and all these other terrible things. She called me every name in the book. I told her I'd be pressing charges for fraud and that she is just as bad as my brother. I then called my phone company and I made an absolute fuss. Luckily, they took notes and someone saw the part about no purchases. So thankfully, they reversed the charges for that. They immediately disconnected the lines and flagged the phones as stolen so they can't be used. After that, I cut contact with my brother and I haven't spoken to him since. After that ordeal, I don't see myself ever contacting my brother for anything ever again. How disconnected and toxic can you possibly be to even come close to blaming the original poster for anything in this situation? They actually made an attempt to try and connect with their brother, who is clearly struggling in life. They were willing to put them on their phone plan so that they could have some way of communicating with their family. But as a result, the brother literally turns around and tries to commit fraud. And it blows my mind that someone would actually do that. that? Here you have a sibling who's actually trying to reach out and help you out, but you double down and say, I hope your credit tanks. Like, what an absolute scumlord. Thankfully, they got exactly what they deserve, and those phones were marked as stolen, which basically that's exactly what they were. The original poster goes on to say that their brother has tried to clean up a few times, but at the same time, they really just don't want anything to do with them. And you know what? I don't blame them, because this is a classic case where if someone shows you exactly who they are, you should believe them. And from what we've seen, the original poster's brother is an absolute piece of garbage, and I don't blame them for cutting them out of their life. Am I the jerk for confronting a family friend who went to my restaurant, who left a nasty, mean note for my coworker and chose not to give them a tip because they saw them in the back kitchen on their phone? So a close family friend came into the restaurant and was seated in my coworker section. It was fairly slow, so I was free enough to go talk to the family friend for several minutes at a time, just to catch up and say hi. While I was at their table, my coworker, who was their server, came to check on them several times as well. Their food came out promptly and drinks were never less than half full. My section was very close to this table, so I was keeping an eye on them. She even came back twice to make sure they didn't need anything else and everything tasted perfect. Apparently, my family friend saw my coworker back by the kitchen on her phone, which is weird because she would have had to turn all the way around just to see that. She was seated facing away from the kitchen. After dinner, the family friend left a note on their bill, basically complaining that this person was on their phone, and as a result, they left them no money as a tip. My coworker came to me crying, asking if she did something wrong, so I confronted the family friend via text message, asking what happened, and explained that in our state, servers don't make a wage. If anything, they only get about $2 an hour. That gets taxed out immediately. We went back and forth for a bit, where I explained how much that kind of thing can affect someone. I was being nice, trying to get my point across, while trying to understand why my coworker was stiffed all this money. Anyway, it's caused a huge mess. She went to my parents, since they're close friends, to complain about me. I'm 30, by the way. My parents told me their friendship is now rocky thanks to my confrontational attitude. Everyone I work with that knows what happened says that they would have done the same thing if it was someone that they knew. I'm not sure if it's the atmosphere of the restaurant I'm at or what, but anyone who doesn't work with me says I owe my family friend an apology, but I honestly don't think so. She got great service from my coworker, so I stand by my actions. The phone use had nothing to do with how my coworker executed her job. If everyone could understand how negatively stiffing us affects us, much less a rude note along with it, the industry would be much better. I will call it out when I'm able to, even if I'm just the bad guy for it. So that begs the question, am I the jerk for calling out my family friend for stiffing my coworker and not tipping them anything? I don't think you're the jerk at all. I personally think that watching a server go off in privacy and checking their phone in the back, even if just for a little bit, is by no means a good enough reason for you not to give them some kind of tip. It's not like the server was out in the open with their phone out and everybody could see it. They literally were in the back trying to maybe take care of something private. Like they could have gotten a text message from their mom or their dad, or maybe about their kid, like who knows? There are plenty of reasons why that could have possibly happened. But to make the decision that, hey, I'm just gonna not tip them over that, especially after the quality service that you did receive, is really toxic. So if I was in your shoes, I definitely would have called this family friend out, because what they did is incredibly inappropriate. Because I know for a fact, if that happened to me and someone left some nasty note to me complaining that they saw me in the back in privacy checking my phone, I would be upset too. And I'm personally of the opinion that if you treat a waiter like garbage, who has done everything right and has been very kind and attentive to your needs, then you in fact are the jerk in this situation, and you are very toxic. There's no reason to treat people like that, especially when you consider that these servers make $2 an hour. And I personally would definitely ignore those parents. Who cares that their relationship is rocky with this supposed family friend? That's none of your business, and honestly, you can't fix that. If anything, I think the original poster should be proud that they stood up for their coworker and said, you know what, enough is enough. Because doing that to somebody is absolutely inappropriate. And in my opinion, someone needed to say something. I accidentally got someone fired from the restaurant I'm interviewing for, and I honestly don't know what to do. To preface the situation, I used to manage both restaurants and hotels. I'm trained on most, if not everything, in a hospitality setting. When I go out, I'm always watching and observing how people act and how they work. I can't help it. It just happens. I'm interviewing for a general manager role for a local restaurant that I've actually never eaten at. After my second interview, which was over Zoom, my boyfriend and I popped into the restaurant for dinner. We sat at the bar, had some burgers, and we chatted. He has also got some restaurant experience, but now has a master's in something else. So we're always watching and just seeing what other people are doing. We both watched as one of the servers drop a lid and pick it back up and put it back on top of the food that it was on. And when I saw this, it took all of me not to say something at the time. This afternoon, I had my third interview with two of the executive team members, and I mentioned that I ate there on Friday night. They then asked me about my experience to see how I was feeling about it. I gave them an honest answer and my observations for that night, and I told them in detail how I saw a server drop a lid and then put it back on the container that had the food in it. Needless to say, they were both shocked and appalled. Fast forward, and I had my fourth interview with a culinary director about 2 hours later. After we talked about how important sanitation and food safety was, he asked what I would have done had I been manager on Friday night and witnessed what I saw. And I told him straight up that I would have thrown the entire thing away and then had a very important conversation about policy and procedures with the staff member who just blatantly ignored safety protocols. He then mentioned that they're actually having that conversation tomorrow and they're going to be firing that guy. I guess he's been making similar mistakes before, but having an outside witness to such a huge mistake is absolutely unacceptable. They went back and watched it on video, which means they saw me stuffing my face as well. So servers, bartenders, and buses, you never know who is watching. I expected to have a stern conversation if I was in their shoes, but I honestly was not expecting for them to get fired. What a tragedy that is. Because yes, what you saw was really inappropriate, and that guy should have gotten a clean container and used that instead of the one that fell on the ground. But I've been in that position of trying to rush food out, and I'm sure the poor guy was probably just in a rush, and I'm sure he's just getting underpaid, and it was probably just an honest accident. If this was a 3-star Michelin restaurant, then sure, that server has gotta go. But it's probably just some major food chain, and this was probably just an honest mistake. But either way, I think it's still very important that they reported this, because you could have gotten someone sick, and that's honestly just gross. So hopefully if you do get hired by this restaurant, you can help the fellow servers and everybody else there realize that they shouldn't cut corners, and that sanitation really is a big deal. I just found out 2 hours ago that my boyfriend is on dating apps, and he's possibly dating other women, and I honestly don't know what to do. This is more of a vent than anything else, but I really need to get this off my chest. So I've been dating this surgeon, and I specifically made a point to him to say that I'm looking for a real relationship, not something casual. I'm looking to get off the apps and build with someone that I love. If that's not you for whatever reason, then that's cool, and it's all love. But let's not date then. I told him this straight up, and I even opened up to him about how my father was a perpetual womanizer. He would get around to a lot of women, if you know what I mean. He dated at one point 3 women at once, all while married at the same time. If you've ever seen the opening scene from the movie Trainwreck, that's how my childhood was. On a weekly basis, he would sit me down and he would tell me that all men cheat. And I am naive if I don't believe it. I better be prepared. I mean, what's so special about me that a guy wouldn't cheat? According to my father, he convinced me that all women get cheated on. And I would cry and say, no, that can't be true. And this was as early as 14 years old. He would say, I'm doing this because I love you and I want to protect you. In my life, I've had many long-term relationships. Some ended in cheating and some didn't. But to make a long story short, I opened up to my boyfriend only 2 weeks ago about my father and my childhood and told him all of the vulnerable details about myself. And he looked me in the eye and acted like he understood and didn't understand cheaters. Well, fast forward to today, and I was with my friend and she saw him on Bumble. She swiped on him and it matched less than 5 minutes later. I called him, I think 5 times. I probably sent 10 text messages. I honestly feel like an idiot at this point. I didn't get mad or cuss him out. I just told him that my friend matched with him. I told him that I trusted him and that I opened up to him and that we had talked about this very thing and that I hope it was worth it to use me for some quality time or whatever he was looking for. I then put my phone in the car and came back inside the house, which was the only way to stop me from texting him and calling him. Cheers to being 28 and still alone. And now I don't know what to do with myself for the rest of the night, and I'm honestly just sad. That is a terrible situation. You literally just opened up to this guy and you said, hey, this is my past and this is what really hurts me. And then you find out he's on another dating app. And I am more than willing to bet that he was probably already on this dating app well before you opened up to him about your past. And that's really heartbreaking. Honestly, you could do so much better than this guy, because this guy sounds like an absolute piece of garbage, and you do not need that kind of energy in your life. My girlfriend created a fake situation where I would need to stand up for her in order order to test me and see if I was loyal. And now I don't know if this was a red flag or not, and I don't know what to do. So basically, I recently started dating this girl by the name of Sarah. That's not her real name. And things were going great. The weekend had just gone by, and we had our 5th date, and we hit the bars. Everything was going great for the first few hours, until we were approached by 3 guys. 2 of the guys kinda hung back a few feet away, while the 3rd one came straight up to us and started overtly flirting with Sarah. At first, I thought this was reasonably funny, since Sarah clearly wasn't interested, and whilst laughing, told the guy where to go, but the guy wouldn't take no for an answer, and started pulling on her arm, trying to get her to walk away with him. Now, I'm not a confrontational person at all, so at this point, I started to get nervous, but Sarah wasn't laughing anymore, and was looking a little bit scared, so I put my hand on the guy's arm and politely told him that Sarah wasn't interested, and I asked him to please leave us alone. The guy didn't like this and started acting quite aggressive. He called me a bunch of names and squared up at me. Now at this point, I was convinced that I was going to end up in a fight over a girl that I had only known for a few weeks, and I was not having it, but I stood my ground and tried my best to defuse the situation. And then something crazy happened. Sarah and the guy burst out laughing. It turns out they knew each other, and this whole thing was just an act prearranged by Sarah in order to test me. And according to Sarah, I passed the test because I stood up for her. Now at the time, I was too relieved and a little bit confused that I had somehow passed this mysterious test to even try and make a fuss about it. But instead, we just enjoyed the rest of the night. But the next day, after I had sobered up, I realized how messed up that whole situation kind of was. I spoke to a friend about it, and he said that it was a major red flag for a girl to arrange something like that. Truth be told, I really don't have much dating experience, so I don't know what to make of it. So I now look to the internet for some kind of collective wisdom to help me out. What should I do? In my opinion, yes, you passed the test, but unfortunately, she failed. She created some fake drama and put you in a situation that you did not consent to. Her test honestly shows how selfish, entitled, and manipulative that she really is. She failed the girlfriend test because she literally went behind your back just to try and mess with your head. And what if the original poster had gotten into a fight because of this? You can't just corner someone like that and expect to get away with that, because you can know that if the tables were turned, she would freak out on him, and she would not take that sitting down. In my opinion, this is a massive red flag. She wants to play stupid games with you when you're just trying to have an honest relationship, and that's not fair for you for a second. And now at this point, in my opinion, she's turned into the girl who cried wolf. She's basically had a fake situation arise where some guy's trying to pull her away. And how are you supposed to know in the future if a future event really is real, or if it's just another one of her friends playing another stupid test? This could have gone so many different ways, and in my opinion, you can find someone who's not going to play games, but is actually going to want to be a solid girlfriend in your life. My entitled parents are refusing to be involved in the process of me buying a house, but when I do try to get things going, my mom freaks out on me and screams at me, and it makes the entire situation that much worse. Here's what happened. I have known exactly what I have wanted for as long as I can remember. If it's achievable, I will go after it. One of those things was buying a house, specifically a white farmhouse. I have been living in an apartment for 9 months now, and my lease is over on the 12-month mark. I have a couple $1,000s saved up and have been working on my credit for a year. It was a perfect time to start looking, and if I found something that I liked, I would get it. A family friend is a loan officer, and she recommended a real estate agent. We met up, we made a plan, and I get the process started. At that point, I knew I should probably tell my parents to prevent any kind of debates or arguments about it, and especially because they owe me a couple $1,000s too. I go to lunch at their house every Tuesday, and I work up the courage to bring it up right as I'm about to leave. I say to them, hey, I've been talking to a loan officer, and she recommended this agent, and we started looking for houses. After I said that, I get no response from either of them, and they don't even look my way. I continue by saying, I know you guys still owe me a couple $1,000, and while I don't need it, it would be extremely helpful in the process if you did pay me back. It takes a minute, but my dad goes on and says that they have to pay $20,000 in taxes for this quarter, which makes sense to an extent because they have 2 businesses. So they wouldn't be able to pay me back for a while. My mom at this point also still won't look at me. So I say that's all right, and I just leave. And I never mention it again. A couple weeks later, I am now touring houses. Throughout those weeks, I try to drop hints, and I try to include them in this process, but they seemed completely uninterested. I go look at my first few houses, and I am considering putting an offer on one, but I wanted to look at it one more time time and see another house first. My sister is also interested in buying a house, but for now, she is just watching the market, and she sends me a different one to check out. This one that she sends me, I had already asked my agent about, and I give her a call to tell her about it. My sister answers and my mom is with her. About 5 minutes through the call, my mom takes her phone and starts talking to me. At first, it's cordial, but then she says that my dad doesn't feel included and it's making them upset. I tell them, well, I didn't know either of you wanted to be included. Now, this conversation should have ended with them asking if they can come along to a house showing, but instead, my mom gets defensive. And at this point, she starts going off on me. She brings up everything that I do that she doesn't agree with, and how I am ruining my life apparently, and I'm making terrible decisions. This goes on for just under 3 hours. And yes, I checked the call time. I couldn't believe it. This has already been such an anxious week for me, and I haven't really slept well either. And this was just icing on the cake. At this point, I was just completely done. I hung up on her because I realized that this was going nowhere. I was done defending my actions and trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. I hung up and didn't talk to either of them for 3 days. Since then, I have kept looking and found one that I want. I am moving into my new house on November 18th. Because my dad and I are so similar, we get along fairly well, but we both struggle with communicating. I now know how much he wanted to be a part of this, and I basically forced him to have a conversation about it. He told me right now is a terrible time to buy a house, and it would be a terrible investment. He went on and on about how the market is terrible and interest rates are way too high, and how difficult it would be to refinance it. This conversation went on for 20 minutes. I was trying to find a good way to acknowledge him, but at the same time, I already knew what he was saying, and I had taken that into account. I finally said, Dad, I know. I have already thought of that, and the market could crash tomorrow or in 6 years. I don't know, and neither do you. So it doesn't matter. What matters is I need a place to live, and I don't want to rent for another year. If I'm able to buy it right now, why shouldn't I? Surprisingly, he agreed with me, and since then, I have tried my very best to include him in this process. I brought him to the house, and later that night, he told me how proud he was of me, and that this is a huge accomplishment. I got my white farmhouse, and I can't wait to make it my home. This ended up being a really happy ending. The original poster was able to make up with their dad, and they were able to include them in seeing their new house. And the original poster got the thing they always wanted. They got the white farmhouse, which is fantastic. Hopefully they can work things out with their mom, but at the end of the day, they got what they wanted, and they're ready to face the challenges of being a homeowner, even if that means they have to do it alone. My entitled mother is gaslighting me into giving her hundreds of dollars every month, just so she can further feed her addiction. And I'm honestly so sick of the lies, and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Let me first start off by saying that my mom is an alcoholic, and she has been one for many years. Her alcoholism was so bad that my grandmother had to take me in at the age of 9 because my mom was unfit and putting me in danger. She continued to make bad choices due to her alcoholism and had been in jail multiple times while she lived in the US. When I was 18 years old, back in 2010, she was deported back to our home country of El Salvador. From the moment she was sent away, I was told by my grandmother that we needed to help her monetarily to help her adjust to her new life. Mind you, this is a very common ideology in Latino communities, that you must help your parents. I was 18 and only working minimum wage jobs, but I never failed to fulfill my duty and send money to her every 2 weeks. Back in those days, I was pretty manipulated and was sending at least $500 every month. When she got deported, she relapsed into alcohol again and would lie about money or would always complain that she didn't have enough to pay a certain bill. This atrocious cycle continued for years. Fast forward to about the age of 25, when I moved out on my own. I started to realize that this continuous cycle of sending money while being harassed that the money wasn't enough, all while my mom never took accountability for being an alcoholic who neglected me as a child and technically wasn't the parent figure I had in my life, was enough for me to say that I wanted to do something about it. My fiance advised me that the money I was sending, about $300 a month at this point, was simply way too much, especially since she hadn't had a good track record with money before. So he suggested to lower it to about $200 a month, which is what she currently receives. And of course, she never fails to remind me the sacrifices she's made to have some kind of life on those means. She continues to ask me for more, and she even reaches out to other family members as well, and manages to manipulate them into giving her money as well. She will continuously mention how she is short for her bills, how her physical health has declined, and that she needs money for medical expenses right now. And it's always something something to try and squeeze more money out of me, but I have stayed firm for about a year and have only given her $200 a month. Now I'm at a point where I don't want to keep hearing about how the money is not enough or that she doesn't have enough money to pay for her bills. Today, as a solution, I offered her to pay those bills directly instead of wiring it to her. I even offered to restore her cable since she always complained about never having enough to even have the cable on in the first place. But when I offered to do it this way, she completely flipped out on me and now thinks that I'm the worst daughter she's ever had for doing these things. She's claiming that I'm being stingy or controlling and even tried to project her alcoholism onto me and say that I drink too much, stating that I'm trying to spend my money on alcohol, which is completely false and not even close to the truth. I want to be able to just cut her off completely, but I think the only reason I don't is because I love my grandmother so much that I don't want to hurt her through her daughter. But I think I'm in a totally unfair situation right now, and I really don't know what to do. I think your way of doing this, of saying, hey, I'll pay for your bills directly, is honestly your best bet to prevent further feeding this addiction that she has. She clearly has a problem, and she's using everybody around her to try and get money so that she can have just one more drink. The reason she's freaking out is because you will very quickly find out that her bills do not equate probably even close to $200, and that she's most likely pocketing most of that money just so she can get her fix. And that is not fair for you. This level of abuse and manipulation and gaslighting is not fair for you because you're the one that's working hard for that money and sending it her way no matter what. And that's just not fair. There are so many red flags when it comes to your mom. So if I was in your shoes, I would stick to my morals and say, you know what? If you want money from me, you need to provide me an itemized bill with a list of everything that you're owed for that month. And only then will you cough up the money that you've earned to take care of her. The other obvious choice is to say, you know what? I'm not paying another cent towards your addiction, because that's exactly what that money's going towards. She's feeding her alcohol addiction and she's trying to manipulate you into giving her more money. So maybe it's time to cut the cycle and remove yourself from this situation completely, because it honestly does not sound like this is going to get better anytime soon. I feel like my girlfriend wants to be with someone else, and I'm kind of at a loss and I don't know what to do. I have been dating my girlfriend for a long time, and everything has been great up until the last couple of months. We recently moved into our own place pretty far away from home, and we are living together and it's going really well. Unfortunately, my dad passed away in this time frame, which really affected my mental health. Obviously, this was pretty hard on me, and I know I wasn't my normal happy self lately. Flash forward to just about a month ago, I noticed my girlfriend, who has always been absolutely awesome and trustworthy, starting to act very strange. I work from home, and she works a lot, so when she would come home from work, it would always be a big deal to see her, and I would give her hugs and kisses and all the other things you would expect from a boyfriend. Suddenly, out of nowhere, she stopped seeming that into it, and now whenever I give her a hug and a kiss when she comes back from work, it feels like it's just kind of half-hearted. And really, I'm not controlling or anything like that, but I did notice that she started following this guy from work on Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, which is totally fine. I think it's okay to have friends that are guys or girls, but this was kind of weird for her to do, since she normally doesn't do that. She makes TikToks for her company's work sometimes too, and this same guy was one she popped in with, which again is completely fine. But after everything that had been happening, you start to have your mind racing a bit. She also started coming home from work much later, and it got to one point last week where she wasn't home until 9:30 at night, which was really out of character for her. She mentioned she was staying after work to work on a Halloween project with one of her friends, and this was all connected with work. My girlfriend also mentioned that she had to go stop and get groceries after work as well, but when she texted me when she was leaving the store, it was nearly 9 o'clock at night, and she never ever goes anywhere to a store like Walmart by herself at that time. I was trying not to overthink it, but it just wasn't adding up, and after I brought this up to her, she just kept stating that she was there at night and didn't do anything else. I have always trusted her, but she eventually broke and told me that she was giving the same guy from earlier a ride home, and kept lying to me about what she was actually doing that night. She kept assuring me it was just a friend, but it's really odd for her to hang out with someone so much older than her. And if it's just a friend, why lie about what you're doing if there's nothing to hide? And it turns out they had been talking for a while and have even hugged before at work. She also mentioned that she may have developed feelings for this person and that she heard he likes her too. I'm not one to snoop either, and I have never gone through her phone, but I've glanced over before, and apparently they have each other's number and they text often. I saw some good mornings and good night text messages just today, even after all this. She even muted and hid the notifications so I wouldn't see that they were texting each other. Again, if it's just a friend, I'm not sure why it needs to be so secretive. Keep in mind, I would not be that upset about this if we were still acting normal in our relationship, but we haven't at all, and we used to spend time together all the time. She even told me that she had been distancing herself from me because she thought I was going to leave her, which has never crossed my mind, and it hurts to think she thought I'd do that. Recently, we even went on a trip and to some events, and she is always someone who wants to take pictures and post them online, but she didn't do any of that this last time and hasn't for several weeks now. Even our dates, it feels like she's trying to hide the fact that she is with me. I just don't know what to do right now. I even flipped the script and I asked her what she would think if I was doing this to her, and she said she probably would have left me, but for some reason I still want to be with her. She's been my best friend forever, and I really do love her. We grew up together and have had absolutely zero issues until recently. It's all just so confusing, and I even emailed a therapist to try and get some help in the situation because every day has been a struggle with this on top of losing my dad. There are just so many emotions all at once, and I'm feeling alone all day because I really don't have any other friends. What should I do? I think it's safe to say that there's something going on, but I think you need a lot more information as well as evidence that she's even cheating before you try and say, hey, I think you're cheating on me. Like, this is just a suspicion. She could very easily just be super stressed from work, and she just feels down from all the workload that she has to deal with. There could also be issues in her family that she just doesn't want to talk about. But I do agree with this original poster to some degree. Some of her actions are really suspicious. I think if anything, maybe asking to look at those text messages between her and this male coworker would probably put some of your fears aside. If there's nothing to hide, then she really should be okay with him looking at it. I don't think that's totally unreasonable here, because if anything, and if she really does care, she would probably be willing to show this to him just so he can absolve his fears that she's trying to cheat on him or something. Even though, to be honest, from the outside looking in, it definitely looks really sketchy. So hopefully this conversation goes well and some of your fears get absolved, because like you said, you guys grew up together, and up until very recently, you had a really good relationship, and it would be a shame for something like this to tear it apart. My boyfriend and his family are hotheads who get into massive arguments all the time, and I'm not sure what to do. My boyfriend can be very argumentative. We've had several arguments over what I see as nothing, and I've also witnessed him have several arguments with friends and family. Last night, he and his mom had a huge argument, which lasted over an hour, with me in the corner wishing I was anywhere else in the world. This was one of the worst arguments I've ever seen in person. They were screaming into each other's faces, literally the entire time. His mom pushed him several times, and I'm just grateful he didn't push back, obviously because he's much stronger than her. It started off as something small, but as they both tried to hurt each other, it got personal and twisted. Both of them said some extremely hurtful things to each other, and I heard long-kept family secrets that I was definitely not meant to hear this early in a relationship. One or two things even came up that I would have never heard even under happier circumstances. They were equally matched, and they both gave as good as they got, so I feel bad for my boyfriend a little bit more, but he was no saint in this situation. Overall, I think he was more in the wrong, but he brought up some deeply unsettling trauma from his past, so I cannot have him thinking that I'm not in his corner. I wanted to stay out of it, as it's a new relationship, and we have only been dating for about 5 months, but I also wanted this argument to end so badly. Eventually, we ended up leaving, and per my decision, we stayed at my place. My family is way more placid. We are probably the polar opposite to my boyfriend's family. We tend to have quick fights and get over it very quickly, but the fight last night really scared me, and I'm not sure how to move on or what to do in the future. I wanted to scream at them both to shut up, and in hindsight, I don't know why I didn't. I think I just didn't want to get caught up in family drama, even though they are likely to be my family in the future. My relationship with my boyfriend and his family is amazing. If I intervened, he would expect me to take his corner, but I couldn't do that, especially when I know that he is in the wrong on some of the things that he said. I'm so fearful he has permanently damaged his relationship with his mom, as well as with his wider family, once they hear some of the things that were brought up. What on earth am I supposed to do in a situation like this? I wanted to help heal the argument, but I feel like it's not my place. I also want to talk to my boyfriend about him being a hothead, but I am already afraid of both hurting him by saying that, as well as the argument that this conversation will eventually lead to. What should I do? The fact that your boyfriend is screaming at the top of his lungs in his mom's face, and she's reciprocating that type of energy, does not spell a good future for this relationship, in my opinion. That way of communicating is not healthy, and it can hardly even be called communication. It's extremely aggressive, and in the end, all that really happens is that people get red in the face, stop listening to each other, and try to drown each other out. It is legitimately no good way to solve any problem. And sure, it's okay to be upset and worried that this is going to damage him and his family's relationships or stuff along those lines, but to be completely honest, this is a massive red flag. You've only been together for 5 months, and you've already had several fights. And these aren't just disagreements on some subject matters. These are full-blown fights where everybody's getting angry at the other person. This is super early for someone to be acting like this, and it's really just not fair for you. And in my opinion, this is a good sign that this might not be a good relationship to be a part of. His way of resolving conflict is not healthy, and I can guarantee you that this will probably be the dynamic that you're going to be stuck in for the entirety of any kind of future relationship you have with this guy. So I definitely think it's time to have this conversation with your boyfriend if you ever have hope of this relationship working out. My girlfriend is thinking of inviting her ex-boyfriend over to her house with her relatives to celebrate the upcoming Christmas vacation, and I honestly don't know what to do. I have been with my girlfriend since the start of this year. She has a friendship with her ex-boyfriend, who she split with about 2 years ago, even though they were merely friends the last part of their multi-year relationship, and the attraction is apparently dead still. My girlfriend went through some rough stuff mentally, and her ex was very supportive of her during these times, which continued after they split up and moved apart. They have remained friends up until now, and I've been dealing with it, but also remained uncertain about the future of this dynamic. Recently, it's been getting a lot worse, since her ex-boyfriend has mentioned that he feels lonely, and my girlfriend feels bad about him being lonely since he's been so supportive of her until now. For me, I'd grown used to us having this dynamic, where we were all friends, but with him eventually being able to find someone new or make new friends, thus becoming less dependent on my girlfriend for his social needs. The issue for me came back in full force when I mentioned Christmas, asking how any of that would work. My girlfriend didn't have an answer, since she hadn't really thought about it until now, since she would spend Christmas with her relatives and with her ex up until now. She hadn't really thought about how it would work either, but since her ex-boyfriend has mentioned being lonely, it honestly feels like it's going to be hard to reach a situation where her ex has to be by himself during Christmas without my girlfriend feeling guilty about it. I have never celebrated Christmas with a significant other before, so I had been looking forward to this being a holiday for us as a couple. I have expressed this and she does understand my point of view, and I honestly don't think I could ever feel relaxed or happy during Christmas if her ex-boyfriend is around, since I feel that they would inevitably and accidentally bring up some of their history or fond memories that they've shared during precious Christmas holidays. I feel like it's either going to end up with her ex-boyfriend hanging around and my girlfriend feeling less guilty about him feeling lonely, but with me instead feeling left out of my own relationship, even though they are just friends. If her ex-boyfriend doesn't join us, I have a feeling that my girlfriend will feel guilty about him being lonely. I gave the option that I celebrate Christmas on my own with my relatives, but she says she wants to spend Christmas with me. I can't really find any situation where neither of us will feel guilty, so I don't know what to really do. I don't have the capacity to feel like I need to think about her ex all the time, and about whether he feels included or not. If their friendship is to continue, I need to have some boundaries of what I consider to be private affectionate time with my girlfriend. I get the feeling like it's going to end up as a three-way relationship if he can't find peace on his own after their breakup. This is all becoming so messy, and I honestly don't know what to do. I think the original poster has it right. I think some serious boundaries need to be drawn between who is and is not allowed into your relationship with your girlfriend. Obviously, her ex-boyfriend played a big role in her life previously, and she clearly has some kind of affection towards him, but I think that affection, even if it's just friendly and wanting him to have a good Christmas vacation or whatever, is really misplaced, and I think she's missing the mark completely. She should be focusing on her boyfriend and not her ex-boyfriend. It is not her responsibility to make sure he is happy on Christmas. There are so many other options that he could pursue to make sure that he's not alone during this holiday. It's honestly a little ridiculous if you ask me. By even instigating the idea that he's welcome during Christmas to come and visit her family, with you there most of all, is really insulting in my opinion. And if I was in your shoes, I would not be okay with this situation. So if anything, if I was in your shoes, I would have a talk with my girlfriend and say, hey, this makes me uncomfortable, and I really do not want him here during our Christmas holiday. Because honestly, no matter how you spin it, or no matter what you do to try and be accommodating, it is absolutely going to be weird. My girlfriend is demanding that we have kids right now, but I don't want to do this while she's struggling so hard with her depression, and at this point, I don't know what to do. So my girlfriend and I have had a goal to start a family. We have been together for 3 years. We made the decision to move states to be closer to her mom, mom and the rest of her family for support. So we got a bigger place and I quit my job and we moved. I have started a new job opening a hotel, and she started a job at the local hospital and she works as a nurse. We have been in our new place for about 5 months now. So about 4 months ago, my girlfriend got hit hard with depression. She has become paranoid and controlling, constantly being worried about me when I'm not at home. If I don't get back to her right away, or if I'm busy at work, for example, she will panic and say that she was worried something had happened to me. She constantly claims that she is sad and doesn't know why. She has lost a lot of motivation and has, as a result, put on a lot of weight, which really bothers her. But it doesn't bother me one bit. She refuses to make decisions about anything, always assumes the worst in everything, and thinks that she is a burden to everyone. But despite it all, I keep trying to give her affirmations that this is not true at all. She also knows that she is struggling and constantly says that she needs to see a therapist, but refuses to take the steps necessary to get one. I have picked up all the slack with taking care of the house, as well as when we go get groceries or even the chores. The problem now is that she is caught with baby fever really bad. 2 of her friends have had babies in the past year. She is constantly bringing up that we should be trying to have kids. I say that the timing is wrong because of what she is dealing with currently. I want to be a father a lot, don't get me wrong, but I also want to give my kids the best shot with parents who are able to do their best for their kids. And to be completely honest, the timing is just not right now. And when I've communicated this with her, she has become very upset about my stance. I just want both of us to be healthy and in a functioning state of mind before we bring a baby into the picture. I feel like she thinks having a baby will cure her depression, which I honestly think is just a bad idea. Am I wrong for feeling this way? What should I do? I think you really need to trust your gut on this one, and I completely agree. Having a baby is not going to solve her depression at all. If anything, it might worsen it, because now suddenly there's going to be another child in the house that is completely helpless and entirely dependent on you. That's going to add some extra pressure on the relationship as well as the household in general. I think having a baby just because your friends are having a baby is just terrible. That's a horrible idea. And if anything, it might be time for you to step up and see if you can help her find a therapist. Depression is no joke, and it's super important to get that figured out, because otherwise she's just going to be miserable. So in my opinion, I would definitely wait on trying to have kids, especially if you feel like your partner is struggling right now, because that's not going to solve your problems. And in my opinion, it's just going to make things just a little bit trickier. An entitled Karen calls the cops on me for buying a PS5, and I am still in disbelief of all that went down. Here's what happened. I'm a 35-year-old male, and I'd gone to the local store looking to pick up a few things with my cousin for a long night of gaming, as neither of us had anything to do that Friday or Saturday night, and the new Call of Duty game had just released at the time. Not knowing how terrible this game was supposed to be, we were hyped to get it and put in as many hours as we could. As I carried my shopping cart full of Doritos and the biggest bag of pizza rolls I've ever seen, I happened to notice a singular PS5 sitting behind the glass in the electronics section. I walked up to my cousin and I asked him if he was planning on getting it, to which he said he wasn't interested. He already had the new Xbox. I sent my cousin to fetch an employee so I can collect my overpriced prize, and I was so excited for this. I had been looking forward to those PS5 exclusives for several months now. Everything goes swimmingly, and I just bought the PS5. No sooner than I grab the bag and pick it up, an entitled Karen approaches out of nowhere. She jumps in right as I'm finishing up my purchase, looks at the store clerk and says, "Excuse me." The 3 of us turn around and the store employee asks if he can help her with something. But the entitled Karen actually wanted to talk to me and not the store employee. And at this point, I knew this was just going to be trouble, as I could tell that she was putting on this fake voice to try and pretend like she was some kind of nice lady. The entitled Karen looks at me and says, "So, I see that you have the last PS5 they have in stock. Were you going to buy that?" And when she asked that, I told her, yes, actually, I already did. I'm stoked to finally have one. This entitled Karen then looks at me and says, No, you can't have it. I need it right now. I'll pay you double for whatever you paid for it. Now, look, if I hadn't just spent ages trying to track one of these systems down, I would have sold it to her at that cost no problem. But I wasn't able to find an RTX 3080, an Xbox Series, or a PS5 at this point, so no amount of money could have convinced me to part with my new system. I informed this entitled Karen, and she was absolutely not having it. And that is where things started to escalate quite quickly, as this lady just about lost it. Any semblance of a sweet and innocent lady attitude that she was trying to fake went straight out the window, as she instantly demanded that I give her the PS5. The store employee interjected, telling this entitled Karen that if she continues to harass customers, he will have to ask ask her to leave. This entitled Karen then turns to him and says,
I don't care what you're saying. I'm going to get the PS5.
As this entitled Karen's saying this, I use this moment to slip away from her and make a break for the exit. Reaching my car, and just as we were pulling out of the parking spot, we spot this entitled Karen running straight for us. Thinking nothing of it, I drop it into drive and putter to the exit. About a mile to a mile and a half after leaving the store, I hear frantic car honking from behind, and I look up, and you probably guess who's right behind me. It's the entitled Karen in her BMW, tailgating and swerving all over the highway. Other than laughing with my cousin, I ignored her entirely. Roughly 10 minutes pass, and she's still right there on my bumper when I hear sirens of the state police cruiser right behind this entitled Karen. However, this entitled Karen pulls to the right lane, and the officer continues on, and now is directly on my bumper, and is laying on the air horn being super obnoxious. So I pull over, and yep, he's there for me. The entitled Karen had also pulled over behind the officer, though I hadn't noticed at the time. The officer approached and treated me like a possible DUI, and explained that they had received a call about my vehicle swerving all over the road and driving at erratic speeds. After a couple of back and forths, he was convinced everything was fine and started to tell me to have a nice day when the entitled Karen came out of nowhere screaming at the officer,
Officer, arrest this man. He stole my PS5.
I explained to the officer that I had just bought a PS5 at the store down the road, as well as what happened with this entitled Karen at the store. The officer was extremely confused, but could see the PS5 sitting in the back seat within the car. He asked if I could prove that it was mine and that I did in fact pay for it, to which the entitled Karen said,
Absolutely not. He knows I bought it and he grabbed it in the parking lot. Thank God that you're here, officer.
So having worked retail many years ago, I knew that my card number would be on the receipt. So I told this officer, well, I also have the receipt if that helps. To which the entitled Karen, the dim-witted bird that she was, immediately jumped on my comment, stating that I had stolen that out of her hands too. This is where I proudly exclaimed that all receipts show the last 4 digits of somebody's credit card, as well as the first initial and last name of the cardholder. This entitled Karen continued to try and say that the receipt would have her name on it. So I pulled my driver's license out, my bank card, and my receipt. I handed them to the officer, and everything matched. The officer hands them back, thanking me, and immediately turns to this entitled Karen, who is now screaming,
Well, aren't you going to arrest him for being drunk? He was all over the road.
The officer replies and says, So you're the one who called us about a possible DUI? The entitled Karen then makes the biggest mistake of her night. She proudly exclaims,
Yes, I am. Now put him under arrest.
The officer immediately pulled out his handcuffs and slapped them on this entitled Karen. The officer then explained to the entitled Karen that she was under arrest for making a false report, misusing 911 services, as well as my state's laws on stalking. Now, while I got to enjoy this PS5, the entitled Karen got her car towed, as well as a full weekend in lockup, and when the dust finally settled, she pleaded guilty to making a false police report and harassment. I don't know what the terms were, but she was put in a 2-year probation and banned from coming back to that local store ever again. In the end though, I get to enjoy my new PS5, and no entitled Karen's ever gonna tell me otherwise. How absolutely unhinged and crazy do you have to be to not only chase somebody down on the highway, but to then make a false police report, all in the attempt to try and get them in trouble? Like, that's just crazy. It is just a PS5. Is it really worth prison time? Apparently this entitled Karen thought it was. Hopefully they learned a valuable lesson, because I'm surprised that someone had to learn that you can't stalk and harass somebody just because they bought something before you could. An entitled Karen mistakes me for a department manager at the store I work at and begins to lose her cool when I can't detail every aspect of our hiring process. Here's what happened. So I work in the stock dairy department of a major supermarket in my area, and since the holidays are coming up, my store is trying to hire as many people as possible to deal with the holiday rushes. That means there are now signs up stating that we're now hiring all throughout the store. And while I've gotten some questions about the process before, it's usually questions asking how they submit an application, as well as how old you have to be to work there, and if they offer flexible hours for high school and college students. It's the usual stuff that potential applicants would rather ask an associate working on the floor than a manager. I also have to mention, for the sake of the story, I recently got a work shirt with my name embroidered on it. That way I wouldn't have to worry about wearing a name tag anymore. On one particularly super busy Sunday afternoon, I was loading eggs to the shelf when a woman and her teenage son walked up to me. So the woman said,
I see you guys are hiring, and I just wanted to know what the starting pay was to see if this would be a good place for my son's first first job. So I responded, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm honestly not sure what the starting pay is." And right when I said this lady immediately snapped at me. "What do you mean you're not sure? You're the department manager, right?" And when she said this, I was super confused. I said, "No, actually, I'm just a part-timer here." "But your name is on your shirt," she exclaimed, pointing to my chest. "Only managers get shirts like that." So I told her that we've been recently starting to offer shirts like this to literally anyone who wants one, from the department manager to the baggers. But this wasn't good enough for her, because she huffed around and said, "I can't believe that they would let part-timers wear personalized shirts like that. I thought you were a manager. Well, anyways, what do you make an hour?" I told her if her son was hired, he would make less than I do, since I was hired almost 16 years ago. I also explained that workers in my tenure level just got a significant raise. I then deferred and said, "You know what? It would probably be better if you asked a manager this question." And again, this entitled Karen lost her mind. She said, "There's no way you've been working here for 16 years. You look 20 at the oldest." As a side note, I'm 32 and extremely baby-faced. She continued by saying, "Now I'm getting annoyed, so why don't you just tell me what you made when you started working here, since I'm sure it's not too far off from the starting pay now." And so I looked her dead in the eye and I told her that I made $7.25 at the time. The starting wage in my state now is $12.25. At this point, she sputtered something under her breath that I honestly could not comprehend or pick up on, and then suddenly just stormed off with her son in tow. Hopefully this entitled Karen doesn't come back and I don't have to put up with her son, who probably has a bad attitude just like her. This entitled Karen sounds like one of those people who is constantly bothered and upset by basically everything around them. They are always ready for some kind of argument, and it's almost like they're itching to get into a fight. So hopefully she never comes back with her son, because I'm sure that would be miserable having to work with someone related to this lady. Today, I messed up by telling my best friend that I love them, and now he hasn't talked to me in 4 days. So I'm a 22-year-old female, and my best guy friend is 25. Our moms have been best friends since childhood, so we have known each other pretty much our whole lives. We are pretty close, so we do stuff like giving hugs and him carrying me around, stuff like that. Recently, I have started seeing him as more than just a friend, which I find kind of annoying. The reason it's annoying is because he is my friend, and I don't want to ruin that friendship. And not only my friend, but one of my closest and best friends. Back when we were teenagers, he liked me for a while, but after some time, he made it clear that he didn't like me, and he started dating others. We have never dated, and at the time, I was into another guy. Saturday night, he invited me out with his friends at a bar, and I happily accepted the offer. We headed into the bar, and we drank a couple of drinks, so the night was going pretty good. Then we headed to the house of one of the other boys. We were smoking some of the herb, if you know what I mean, and we drank some more alcohol. After about an hour of this, we were all pretty much under the influence. There were about 12 of us in total. When we had to go back home, I was completely wasted, and I didn't know what was happening around me. My best friend was probably the most sober of us, so he called a taxi and got me home. I live on the 4th floor with no elevator, so he had to give me a piggyback ride up to my place. All I remember is that I was blurting out random stuff, as well as words that made absolutely no sense. I remember at one point I blurted out, "I'm in love with you," or something like that. He then stopped for a second and then asked me, "What?" So my drunk self repeated what I said, and we continued going up the stairs. When I woke up in the morning, I saw that he didn't even spend the night, which is what he usually does when I'm alone and this far wasted. I went to the bathroom, and while brushing my teeth, all of this came back to me, and needless to say, I was horrified. I didn't call him or text him the entire day. He did message me that day, however, to see if I was okay and if everything was okay. And since then, I have told him that I'm okay and asked him how he was doing and what he's up to. And while I can clearly see he has seen this message, he has not responded yet. And now I'm not sure if I can ever look at him in the eyes again. He hasn't contacted me in over 4 days now, and I'm not sure he ever will again. Some of my mutual friends have even been telling me that when they offer to call me to hang out as a group or something like that, he always finds an excuse to leave. And now people are asking me why he's trying to avoid me, as it's all becoming too obvious. So I can honestly say I royally messed up in this situation, and I really don't know what to do. It seems like what you said either hit a nerve with him where it kind of freaked him out and he's like, "Whoa, I thought we were just friends," or he feels the exact same way and he's way too shy to pursue this opportunity. There might be some nuance there, maybe it's something else, but there's only one way to find out, to be completely honest. You two have been childhood best friends all the way up until now, so I honestly don't think there's any harm in talking to him and seeing what is going on. Even just at a base level of saying, "Hey, we haven't talked in a while and I miss being around you. What's going on?" Being told that someone is in love with you can be a lot to take in my opinion. So he's probably still processing it. So I say just reach out to him and see what's going going on. I don't genuinely see this as a deal breaker in my opinion, especially with the past that you've had. So in worst case scenario, he probably just wants to be left alone and decides that he just wants to stay friends, which is where the both of you have been operating for years. So I honestly don't see any major issues of talking to him about it and seeing exactly what's going on. An entitled Karen gets angry when I tell her that she can't trespass on my cousin's property. Here's what happened. So my cousin and her family have a beautiful property. Her mom would babysit me during the summers, so I basically grew up there. There are 3 houses with all of her dad's close family living there, which surrounds a big pond. There is a small boat deck, a tennis court, and a pavilion. It's surrounded by forest except for the entrance. It is a totally private property, which means that they have big signs at the front of the entrance that says no trespassing. There's also another street sign halfway down the road that also reiterates that there is no trespassing allowed. Her and her family get really annoyed when random people come walking down their property and just ignore the signs. To get to the property, you have to go down a sort of long road that goes past a few buildings. When you first turn into the road, there is a local gas station, as well as a small strip mall and an apartment complex. I lived in that complex for about a year, which is when this took place. Now, when I moved into that apartment complex, I asked my cousin if I could walk my dog around her property, and she of course gave me permission. One day after I was done walking my dog around the pond, I was leaving through the front gates, which again had the no trespassing signs blatantly on there. I then saw this random woman walking with her young daughter down towards the entrance, who I have never seen before in my life. I politely asked her if she knew the family who lived there, to which she said no. I then pointed to the big sign and said, "Sorry, it says no trespassing." This entitled Karen then gave me an annoyed face and said, "Well, you were just on their property." To which I replied by saying, "Yes, I was, and I know the family. I'm related to them and they gave me permission to go down there." She then gave me a really bad attitude and said, "Well, my daughter wants to go down there. Are you saying that she can't explore?" I replied by saying, "If it means that you are trespassing, then yes. I am saying that you and your daughter can't go exploring there." She finally gave out an annoyed huff and turned to her daughter and said in a very rude tone, "Sorry, honey, this lady won't let us go down there." And they finally turned around and started walking back. I felt like it would be awkward if I started to walk behind them back to my apartment, so I just turned around and just walked my dog around the pond one more time and then left after that. The next day I was with my cousin and I told her about the entitled Karen and she thanked me. She said that it gets super annoying when random people will just show up. I can relate because I have a property with no trespassing signs, yet people still walk down it. And I honestly believe that it's probably the most ignored street sign in all of America. If only people could read to try and understand what these signs said, they wouldn't then have to ask really dumb questions. Hopefully this entitled Karen in this story learns how to read. That way she can correct that weird attitude that she has and be a better example for her daughter. My boyfriend is showing clear signs that he is cheating on me, but I'm not sure what the truth is, and at this point I don't know what to do. So I went out for a night of drinking with a girlfriend from work, and she confided in me that my boyfriend had tried to spend some quality time with her, if you know what I mean. She claims he was incredibly touchy-feely when they had stayed up drinking and everyone else went to bed, and then tried to walk her home with obvious intentions of getting into her room. We had been official for just over a month, so I was very surprised, but I took it with a grain of salt. So I approached him about it, and I reiterated the entire story, and he just seemed surprised. He claimed that none of that had ever happened, and that he had only wanted to walk her home because it was late and unsafe for her to be out alone so late. Even though back when I first started hooking up with him, even if it was just casually, he never once offered to walk me home, and I would often be doing a 2-mile stretch alone, under the influence and in the dark. After I told the friend about his reaction to her story, she quickly began backtracking and changing some details, but he has not been consistent with his retelling either. It has been 7 months since that happened, and I managed to pack away that doubt and have faith that he wouldn't do that to me. But he recently asked to change our anniversary date, and it has caused me to have some anxiety and some suspicion again. There were other things at the time that caused me some suspicion, like the time I caught him on Tinder, and one time when I found a woman's eyelash extension in our bathroom. That definitely was not mine. All of this strongly pointed towards him being unfaithful for the first 3 months or so into our relationship. Recently, I told him that specific incident with my coworker was a non-negotiable breach of trust, and I ended up trying to leave him. But he was absolutely shattered and in tears, claiming that it never happened, and he didn't know what he could do to prove the truth. And now I'm at the point where I'm kind of at a crossroads. I can't tell if this is a reaction of guilt or if he is sincerely heartbroken that I won't believe him. But after all this time, I'm starting to reflect on our relationship, and so many things I forgave are starting to seem suspicious. He would deny having spent a weekend or even attended an event with me to his friends and would minimize me to just being another girl, but would sob and claim I'm his entire world when confronted. We're about to move in together, and I don't think I can do it now that I feel like I've been blindsided. What should I do? I completely agree. I don't think it's the right time to move in. There are a lot of red flags with the way your boyfriend's acting, and some details with his past simply don't add up. If I was in your shoes, I would be super uncomfortable as well. And it does sound like he's only reacting this way because he got caught. Like, it does not sound like this is a genuine situation where he's trying to convince you that no, nothing happened. But in the contrary, he just got caught in the act and now he doesn't know what to do. So I think it's time to take a good hard look at your relationship with him, because based on what you've described, it definitely seems like something sketchy is going on. My girlfriend is giving me an ultimatum to be devoted to her religion or else she's gonna break off the relationship. And I honestly am not sure what to do. When my girlfriend and I began the relationship, there were a lot of rough patches. It was because of this. She started looking towards faith as an option to free herself from any problems she went through. While I made it clear that I'm against those running the church, I never once had a problem with her believing in Christianity, as well as going to church. It was fine by me, so long as I was not involved in it. For a while, this arrangement was good, and we were able to happily continue the relationship. A few days ago, my girlfriend decided to go on an overseas mission trip with some of her friends from church to help out refugees. Halfway through the trip, she texted me to say that she wanted to discuss something important about the relationship. I asked what it was, and she opened up to me about how she wanted a partner that was devoted to the church and wanted me to start committing myself towards Christianity, despite the fact that I made my beliefs very clear, as well as my personal wishes. She asked me to follow her to church, which I had already done on one occasion, but I was very uncomfortable, and that apparently if I didn't want to do that, then this would be a deal breaker for her. She's made it clear that she wants only me to be with her, which is why she's asking me to convert and devote myself towards Christianity. But I've already made my stance clear that I am extremely uncomfortable with this, and that I don't want to support something that I am so strongly against. Am I a bad person for wanting to choose my own interests above the relationship? What should I do? Your girlfriend is being incredibly toxic right now. It doesn't matter what the religion is. The fact that she's giving you some kind of ultimatum to basically force you to join her church or else she's gonna dump you to the curb is unbelievably toxic, and that is a giant red flag. In my opinion, the second an ultimatum comes into play for a relationship, regardless of what the subject matter is, then in my opinion, that relationship is definitely in jeopardy. You don't do that to someone that you love. And what on earth is she thinking of saying, oh, you need to join my church or you're gone? That is so disrespectful to her boyfriend's obvious wishes. He has made his opinion known. He does not want to join her church. And I personally think it goes against what she believes to try and coerce and almost force him into her church just so she can try and stay with him. If I was in the original poster's shoes, I would not change my personal beliefs just to be with this girl. For some context, both of these people are 18 years old. They're very young. And if anything, this is a telling sign that his girlfriend is incredibly toxic and very immature. Just imagine if you flip the script real quick. I'm pretty sure this girl would be super upset if this guy said, you either ditch your church or I'm dumping you. Because that's probably literally how this guy feels with the way she's acting right now. So in my opinion, it's time to take a good hard look at this relationship. Because if she's gonna be toxic and give you some kind of ultimatum, then I honestly don't see this working out. My boyfriend's father is forcing him into an arranged marriage just so I would be forced to break up with him and his business would get some money. And I'm honestly at a loss and I don't know what to do. As the title states, I'm in a dilemma and I'd really appreciate some help. My boyfriend and I have been together for about half a year at this point. A big worry of his at the start of the relationship was our gap in economic status. Basically, I'm of a higher level than he is. This has never ever bothered me as his lifestyle was similar to my parents when they were growing up. I wasn't born with this status either. They had to work hard for what they have. And I would never ever judge anyone based on that. My mom and dad also said that they would never judge him for that either. We quickly got over that hurdle and we have been happy with each other. His family, however, is another story. It's worth noting that I haven't even met them yet and that his dad and mom are separated but still in contact. They found out recently that we were dating because he told them I'm in a different country for a couple of months to study here, and my lifestyle was revealed as he talked about me to them. They were very against our relationship once they learned I was privileged, saying they would be too ashamed to meet me and my family. He works for his dad, and during this time, they also hit a bad spot financially
financially, so my boyfriend had to focus on his work and his family first, which I encouraged. We talk rarely whenever he's free, and every time I am so worried because his dad does not treat me respectfully and is trying to take control of his personal life. He hasn't had a life for a month and little to no contact with his friends or immediate family besides his dad. 2 days ago, we were able to talk again, and I found out his dad is forcing him and this girl into an arranged marriage, and his reasoning behind this is for business purposes, and also to get him to stop talking to me. When I read the text message that I received detailing the situation, I was shocked and very concerned for him and the girl. She also has a boyfriend and doesn't want any of this. The families are planning to have them move in a house soon, and I'm afraid there's no way out of this. For a month or even more, he has been trying to convince his dad to accept us or to even just give him time to talk to me. I want to do something to help because all of this feels out of my control. I know it technically is, but I just feel like he's the only one trying. I've given him reassurance, of course, but the only thing I can think of is to contact his family. Again, I'm in a different country right now, so it's quite hard to just drive up to him. The time difference is just 1 hour, but I won't be back until the end of the year, so it may be too late to help them in person. I wouldn't know what to say without escalating the situation though. I don't want to leave him. I love him so much. Even if we don't end up together, he and this other girl don't deserve this, and they shouldn't be forced into this circumstance. I'm honestly at a loss, and I'm not sure what to do. This is really toxic. This sounds like a plot twist straight out of Game of Thrones. I mean, this is legitimately disturbing. I can't imagine in modern day society someone's dad forcing them to get married to someone they don't even know or like. That's crazy to me. So for the boyfriend in this situation, he's got to put his foot down and say, you know what? Enough is enough. I'm getting out of this situation and you can't make me get married. The original poster goes on to explain that her boyfriend's dad is basically holding him hostage by holding it over his head that he will cut off any source of income for him and he will basically cut him out of his life. Apparently also the dad has gotten physically and verbally abusive towards him, and he's basically not taking no for an answer. So in my opinion, it's time for your boyfriend to get out of there. This does not sound like a healthy or safe situation, so hopefully a solution of some kind can come forward that will allow your boyfriend to get out of this crazy situation, because forcing someone to get married to someone that they don't even know or like is craziness, and no one should feel pressured to marry someone that they don't like. I feel like my boyfriend invalidates my anxieties, and I don't know what to do. With the news of Adam Levine and Ned from the Try Guys cheating coming out, and multiple other celebrity couples, I have felt more anxious that this could happen to me. I recently shared with my boyfriend that I keep feeling anxious about this, and his response basically was that these anxieties were kind of gross, and that he is not like those guys. In addition, he talked about how the more I put thought into this type of anxiety, the more it can come between us and manifest itself into something else. But to me, the response felt rude when he labeled them as gross, and I've kind of wanted to address this to him, but I just don't know how. During this time last year, I was dating my ex that kept hidden the fact that he had a kid for about 2 months into us dating. I felt so stupid when I found out about this because it made me lose trust in him instantly. Now, I'm not comparing this to someone who gets cheated on, but it is definitely gut-wrenching to find out shocking news like this. My current boyfriend knows about what happened to me with my ex and kind of invalidates the trauma I got from this, and has even compared it to his other friends who have dealt with more trauma such as divorce, abuse, and other things. One of our friends from school has shared a lot about her anxieties with my boyfriend, and he always makes it seem like hers are valid, but not mine at all. Now, I'm not saying that I think my boyfriend will go out and cheat on me, but I do find his response to me sharing this anxiety quite demeaning, and I don't know how to address it with him now. It also doesn't help that he usually makes jokes about him cheating with other girls in our graduation class, yet gets salty if I make a joke about a guy at school that flirted with me. I'm honestly at such a loss and I don't know what to do. I gotta be honest, I think the fault is really with the original poster here. It is completely unreasonable to read into pop culture news and let it erode the trust between you and your partner. Don't get me wrong, your anxieties are a real thing, whether they are real or not, but at the end of the day, your anxieties are your responsibility. He literally hasn't cheated on you, and he's expressed that he would not do that. That should honestly be more than enough for you to realize that you can trust him, especially since there's no evidence that he's ever cheated on you, besides you having anxiety about Adam Levine and that guy from the Try Guys. And in my opinion, there's also no winning this situation. Like in this situation, what do you expect him to say? Do you really want him to validate validate your feelings of anxiety that yeah, he could cheat on you like Adam Levine? Because I'm pretty sure you don't want to hear that either. And I don't completely absolve the boyfriend in this situation. It sounds like you both have things to work on, but it sounds like from what you've described that you're letting hypothetical situations dictate how your relationship is going to go. And that's really not good in my opinion. So hopefully things work out, because I think you've got a good relationship in front of you, and there's no reason to let your anxieties take away from that. My boyfriend of 3 years just disclosed to me that he has $20,000 in credit card debt, and I'm completely heartbroken. So as the title states, my boyfriend and I have been together for almost 3 years. He makes about $50,000 a year, and I make close to $100,000. He owns a home, and I have been renting for the last few years. I moved in with him 4 months ago, with the intent of getting married and moving into our own place in the next 2 years or so. This summer, we went on vacation together, which we had about a year to plan for. All I asked was that he paid for his plane ticket and 25% of the hotel. When it came time to buy the plane ticket, he told me that he couldn't go. He said that there were too many expenses that have come up and that he simply could not afford it. I was upset because we had been planning this trip for a year, and I was really only asking him to come up with $1,000. And to top it all off, there were things that were already paid for the both of us. So I ended up coming up with the $1,000 just to pay for his plane ticket as a birthday present, and his gift was the vacation. While we were there, he seemed to have no problem spending money, which was suspicious to me. What happened to all that money that he didn't have when we were first getting our plane ticket? And that is when it hit me. I realized at that point he was using a credit card. Over the month following our return from the trip, I gradually inquired about how much debt he has. He said about $4,000. I thought, wow, that sucks, but it's not insurmountable. Still though, things weren't adding up. So I told him that he needed to really sit down and look at how much debt he has, because it seems like much more than $4,000. He said he would, but he wanted to do it himself, without me around, which is understandable. Today, he told me he looked through everything, and minus the student loans, the house, and the car, he has about $20,000 in credit card debt at an average of 17% interest. And at that point when I heard this, my heart sank. In that moment, it felt like I watched all of our hopes and dreams for both of us go right out the window. Not just the fun stuff we were planning on doing, but things like getting married, having kids, moving. It all slowly started to dissolve in my brain. And it's not like I'm materialistic, but if he tightened his belt and put every cent towards paying off debt and not spending any more, he wouldn't pay off this debt until 2026. And worst of all, it seems like he doesn't care that he has $20,000 in credit card debt, and instead just keeps spending the way that he is. And at this point, I'm at a loss, and I really don't know what to do. I think the original poster hit the nail on the head. Her boyfriend really needs to get his act together. Having $20,000 in debt that's separate from like a housing payment or like student loans or anything like that is really irresponsible. This just means that he's spending without really thinking about it, and he's not paying anything off like he should be doing. So it's really sketchy when he says, oh, I don't have the money to buy this plane ticket, but then allows his girlfriend to buy it and then starts spending a lot of money while they're on vacation. It seems like in that moment he was very dishonest, and that's not fair for the girlfriend. $20,000 in debt is not great, but it's not totally insurmountable. But I think the question here is whether or not you want to deal with somebody who has these terrible spending habits and isn't completely honest with you about their finances. Because in my opinion, that's a big deal in a future marriage. Like, you want to know that your future partner is going to be responsible and take care of you. And if they can't even take care of themselves, then in my opinion, that's a big red flag that definitely needs to be addressed. My mom hates my girlfriend even after being in a relationship with my girlfriend for 4 years, and I'm honestly at a loss. First, some background information. My girlfriend and I met just about 4 years ago and have been in a relationship ever since then. We went through 1 year of international long-distance dating, and after ending the long-distance dating, we lived together for 2.5 years during the pandemic. She was attending grad school while I had a job, and we had a great time together. My mom is the typical fairly conservative Asian parent, the kind of parent who wants her kids to have great grades and go to Ivy League schools. She likes to make decisions based on emotion, not logic. She often criticizes me as well, pretty much for everything, from my hairstyle, my clothing choices, to my grades. There's no doubt that she loves me, but I think she is overprotective. Despite that, I think my relationship with my parents are pretty decent. So earlier this year, I quit my job in order to attend grad school in another city. My mom decided to stay with me for a few months. I also want to stay with my girlfriend, so I asked her to move to my city. Considering that my mom will also be here for a few months, I thought I should
should be fine to have both my girlfriend and my mom under the same roof. But boy was I wrong. Out of politeness, my girlfriend did say hello to my mom when they first met. Since my mom doesn't really speak English, my girlfriend offered to go shopping with my mom, helped to communicate with store clerks, and paid for the groceries since my mom's credit card was not working. However, my mom told me that she was not happy with the shopping experience, and she said that my girlfriend was not standing next to her or walking along with her the entire time. Also, that my girlfriend was walking around and shopping all on her own as well. My girlfriend felt both shocked and hurt that her efforts and goodness only gained her mom's negative comments. After some similar incidents, my girlfriend begins to minimize conversations and interactions with my mom, since she really had no idea how to act. She felt that anything could make my mom unhappy, and she has to be extra cautious around her. My girlfriend is a timid introvert, and she speaks with a soft voice, so she likes to sit by herself and does her own thing most of the time. In subsequent days, my mom claimed that my girlfriend never said good morning to her and is impolite and disrespectful. She felt my girlfriend neglected her on purpose. She also criticized that my girlfriend didn't talk to her, which was not true. My girlfriend told me that she tried to initiate conversation with my mom, but my mom usually only replied with a short answer and no further. My girlfriend also offered to help in some daily things, like carrying groceries around, but my mom always said no, and my mom never proactively reached out to her. To my girlfriend, my mom didn't seem to be interested in chatting with her at all. Then eventually, my girlfriend gradually became more and more unwilling to initiate conversations. Then, for no reason, the conflict really exploded in the next few weeks. My mom said some horrible things, basically claiming that this has been the worst month of her life, and that it was a complete nightmare. She said that my girlfriend was a terrible person, and she basically claimed that I was brainwashed by my girlfriend just to think that she was nice. She then said to me, if you choose her, you lose me, and that she will only be happy if I break up with her. My mom also thought that all the things my girlfriend did were not out of goodness, and she was just faking being nice. And at this point, both my girlfriend and I felt very offended. My mom also played the victim and cried in front of me, saying that my girlfriend was bullying her all the time. I know what she said was not right, but I could not say anything to confront her or to defend my girlfriend, since her crying made me feel guilty. Now, my mom has temporarily moved into my friend's house, since she does not want to see my girlfriend anymore. And since then, the fiasco stopped. My dad is coming in a few weeks to take my mom back home. I really want to continue the relationship with my girlfriend and potentially be engaged with her. Going forward, I have no plans to live with my parents after graduation. I am an adult and I want my own life. However, I know it's going to be impossible for my girlfriend to not meet my mom again, and she is now terrified to ever see my mom again. I know that I need to firmly stand with my girlfriend because she is the person that I will spend most of my time with, but I also don't want to burn bridges with my parents. What should I do? I think first off, this is 100% your mom's fault. Your girlfriend literally gave it an honest try and did absolutely nothing wrong from what you've described, and any efforts that she did make to try and be on good terms with your mom was never good enough. It's almost like your mom was looking for reasons not to like her, and that's just not fair. Your mom sounds incredibly selfish and very toxic, and this is 100% her just acting like a child, and you do not need that in your life. I personally would not let the childish actions of your mother dissuade you from proposing to your girlfriend. If anything, let this be a clear sign that you need to set boundaries with this woman, because she's clearly very toxic and she's trying to give you some kind of ultimatum, stating that if you choose her, she's gonna leave. So I really wouldn't let this compromise your relationship with your girlfriend, because your mom has shown her true colors quite vividly, and if anything, I would let that be your guide of how you should go about your relationship with her, because based on what you've described, she's incredibly toxic, and you do not need that in your life. My girlfriend's ex tried to fight me, and I'm still trying to get over this situation. My girlfriend and I started dating back in March of 2022. We met as co-workers, and while keeping things under wrap for work, we had an amazing few months leading into the 4th of July. For necessary background information, my girlfriend grew up with divorced parents at the age of 5. I got stories and a few explanations when we started dating that she lived her teenage and college years at her mom's house, while her mom was a raging alcoholic. It apparently got somewhat better over time, and she had started to heal their relationship, so we decided to go up there for Boston for the 4th of July. Long story short, my girlfriend's mom is completely absorbed in and committed to her stepdad's family, and still has that drinking problem. The area she lives in is farmland, and everyone in that town has a southern accent, and are nothing like the people I grew up around. The first few days are nice. The area is pretty
party and her mom was extremely accommodating, throwing money at everything. It was all great aside from when we first arrived, when I saw a bunch of my girlfriend's old pictures of her and her friends on the wall, and one featured her ex from college. I politely asked for her to take it down because I wasn't comfortable with it, and she understood and was a little embarrassed. Fast forward to the 3rd. To celebrate her stepson's engagement and the new pool area, my girlfriend's mom had a big party with live music and food. A lot of farmers and the locals attended the event, which I wasn't comfortable with but didn't really care too much about. And lo and behold, amongst her family's friends, the same ex-boyfriend from the photo in my girlfriend's room shows up. My girlfriend was instantly on edge and was embarrassed because he wasn't invited. I was extremely uncomfortable and decided to avoid him. She asked her mom twice to kick him out during the day, but her mom was more invested in her party and the new pool area, so she didn't do anything. I figured, what the heck, he hasn't done anything to me, so I just went about my day. Multiple times while I was away from my girlfriend, he came up to her all buddy-buddy and would try to touch her and engage in conversation. She would always say nothing and tell him to leave her be. The night rolls in and the ex is still there and he's completely wasted. The final straw occurred when I was bringing a drink to my girlfriend who was speaking with her mom when the ex-boyfriend came up. He tried to put his arm around her and my girlfriend said loudly to leave her alone. Her mom didn't care, so I came up and explained to her mom that if she didn't do something then, I would have to get involved. Her mom was like, "Okay, you don't have to be upset," and went on her way. She walked up to the ex-boyfriend and his friend, smiled and had a pleasant short talk I couldn't hear. The ex and his friend, who is my girlfriend's good friend also, go up to the bar and it's clear that they aren't leaving. I knew that was it, so with my legs shaking, I go up to the ex's friend at the bar and tell him that he needs to take his friend home right now. He explains that he's trying, and I reply that it's unacceptable. They gotta leave right now. The ex overhears it and gets really upset. He says, "Who even are you?" And he moves forward to try and take a swing at me. But as he tries to swing, the friend gets him in a headlock and drags him out. The ex is yelling, "Nice to meet you," and a couple other things as he's dragged past my girlfriend and her mom. Her mom finally decides to get upset and chases them out yelling at him. My girlfriend was mortified and was stressed and full of adrenaline. I was surrounded by people who were nasty and even amongst her family. I was the only person to defend my girlfriend's honor. I was awake all night and called my dad the next morning crying in a soy field. When I talked with my girlfriend, she sobbed and we decided to drive 6 hours home the morning of the 4th. It took me about a month to not actively be upset about it anymore, but the feelings of insecurity and anger take over when I feel depressed. I think of them together in the past, and although he cheated on her and she dumped him for it, I can't help but think of them together and equate her love and affection to me as less than it was before. I am now cursed to mull over this event forever, and I just want to be able to love my girlfriend without thinking about him anymore. How on earth do I move past this? What should I do? I think the original poster is just being too hard on himself. I mean, he did stand up for his girlfriend and told this guy to get lost. Like, he did everything right. He also didn't swing back at this guy. He told them to leave, and eventually, with the help of this friend, they got out of there. And sure, it probably wasn't in the cool way that you were hoping it would go down, and you were scared. I mean, anyone would be in that situation, but you did what you could to protect your girlfriend. This guy was being a creep. He was being a complete weirdo, and despite your girlfriend telling him to get lost and to go away, he wasn't getting the hint. So I just wouldn't be so hard on yourself. The best outcome without any violence happened, and I would classify that personally as a win. It would have been a disaster to get in a fight with this guy in front of all those people who are probably family friends of his. That would have been a nightmare, and you would still be dealing with it to this day. So personally, I just wouldn't be so hard on yourself. The best option did play out, and at the end of the day, this guy got away from your girlfriend. So if anything, I think it's time to set some clear boundaries with her family that no, this ex is not invited to any future events. Otherwise, there's just gonna be trouble. An entitled customer calls my manager and lies to them, claiming that I'm a girl from OnlyFans, all because I refused to serve her from the kids menu. Here's what happened. So this happened to me at my last restaurant job about a year ago. It was a small bar and grill type of place, and one of the worst regulars there was this group of teenage girls that would come in at least once a week. These girls were kind of known between all the servers to always get the $6 kids meal, get a ton of free refills on their Shirley Temples, and never tip. I also want to mention our kids meal were only for kids aged 10 and under, and these girls were at least 16 to 18 years old. I've told them this before, and they always act annoyed. The manager and the restaurant owner didn't want to lose their business, so she told me to sell them the kids meal because the restaurant couldn't afford to lose customers, even though she's the one that made this policy in the first place. One day, the girls came in with a group of 10 and ordered a lot of food. Their bill came out to be about $200. Right before they got their food, they decided to move all their stuff to the patio, which we did not have a server for at the time that day. After talking with my manager and the owner, I was told to continue serving them outside because the restaurant wasn't in a position to turn away or lose customers by not giving them exactly what they want. So I continued serving them outside. I ran back and forth between inside and outside. I had to make about 5 trips to the patio just to bring out all of their food. And every time I would come back, they would all collectively be asking for drink refills. And after I brought those refills out, they would then ask for more. They simply did not care. At the end of the meal, their bill comes along. They all say they're going to split the bill, even though when they first came in and I asked them how they would like to pay it, they assured me that they would all pay together. So I hadn't been keeping track of who got what at all. I bring the bill over to them and I go through it with each of the girls. I go print out 10 individual bills, and when I come back, guess what I see? I see 3 girls that are pulling out coins from their wallets. Not even quarters, I'm talking pennies and dimes. They even told me, "Wait, we're almost done." So I ended up standing there and waiting for them to be done. The best part about it is that while I waited, the girls were all laughing amongst each other, being like, "Oh my gosh, she's gonna hate us for this." As well as saying stuff like, "We're so sorry. We're trying to get rid of our loose change." They couldn't have possibly known this, of course, but in this restaurant, we had our own server banks, so any cash that was given to us by customers must be carried around on us till the end of our shift. This was majorly annoying, as it would mean that I needed to walk around with jingling coins in my apron for the next couple of hours, and most likely have to take all these coins home with me. I ended up getting about $30 in just coins, and not a penny extra was spent on a tip. In fact, after signing all of those receipts, not a single one of those people at that table left me a tip. The next time these girls came in, they came in as a group of 4. Once again, they were a pain to deal with, and again, they paid me with coins. This time, I told them that per restaurant policy, they needed to count the coins for me, so they all sat there for quite a while, counting out their pennies and nickels to make sure it covered their bill. And guess what? Once again, they didn't leave a tip. The next time they came in, I really wasn't having it. No more kids' meals. I went against what the manager had told me about the kids' meal and told them that I was unable to put them on the kids' meal as they were only allowed for kids 10 and under. They were pretty mad and decided to just all get sides and appetizers instead. Again, they paid me in coins just like the last 2 times, and they once again left no tip. It was at that point that I started to do some digging. One of the girls was wearing a sweatshirt from the local high school sports team, so I went on Instagram to find out more. Lo and behold, every single one of those girls was on that sports team, and their faces were plastered all over the team's Instagram account with all of their names. Then I had a major breakthrough. There was a girl that I had met a couple of times through mutual friends that also attended that high school and played some sort of sport there, so I decided to text her just to see if she knew these girls at all. I wasn't even really looking for answers. I was mostly just looking to gossip. Come to find out, she's actually their assistant coach. Once I told her everything about these girls and how they've been a complete nightmare to serve to, she was absolutely livid. She told me that she'll talk with him about it, despite me asking her multiple times not to do so, as I didn't want to cause any actual drama between these girls and their assistant coach. A few weeks go by and all the servers were thinking those girls got embarrassed for their behavior, so they weren't coming back in. But we must have jinxed it because they did come back in. Once again, I was their server, and when they all tried to order kids' meals, I told them again that we were not able to sell them that as they were over the age of 10. They got regular adult meals this time and all paid with cards, of course, with no tips. Here's the worst part about it all. Next time I went to work, which was a few days later, the managers are looking at me funny. During my shift, I find out from the grapevine that apparently some teenage girls called the restaurant a few days prior and told the manager and the owner that the girl who served them was a well-known girl on OnlyFans, and that they were disgusted to be served by someone like her, and that they will never be back there again, as it completely goes against the family restaurant vibe that we have. At this point, I was seeing red. None of the other employees knew that they were possibly referring to me, but the managers knew, and the word gets around very quickly there. And for the record, I do not do OnlyFans, nor have I ever done that in my life. I knew it had to be one of those girls. This mysterious caller called on the day that I served them, most likely because I stopped giving in to their requests of getting a burger with a side of fries and a drink for $6.
as well as them paying with coins and not tipping me. Clearly, they were mad that I told their coach about it, and even more mad that I wouldn't sell them this stupid kids meal when they came back in after that. When my manager talked to me, I kind of blurted out that whatever the girls said about me isn't true. The manager was laughing and asking why I thought the call was about me, and when I explained everything to them, they agreed that my theory was definitely the reason for their call. Apparently, after the caller told them all of this awful information, the manager shut it down quickly and told the girls that it isn't anyone's business what the servers do on their own time outside of this job, and that no one would be getting in trouble over this. Thankfully, the manager was on my side about this, even when they thought it was true, but the girls ended up never coming back after that ever again. How crazy do you have to be to make that kind of accusation against someone just because you couldn't weasel some kind of $6 meal out of this restaurant? You have to be a low form of human being to try and do that. Good for this manager for standing up for this employee and saying, you know what, they didn't do this and it's none of your business if they did. The original poster goes on to say that they no longer work there anymore, and honestly, that's probably for the best, because that job sounds like an absolute nightmare, and I cannot imagine having to deal with anything like that. My best friend is always gaslighting and making up previous situations that we have been in, and it's starting to bother and really put a wedge in my life, and I don't know what to do. I have a best friend that we will call Amy. That's not her real name. We've been best friends for 10 years. We went through college together, weddings, etc. The past year or so, I've noticed that she would get a lot of details wrong regarding conversations and interactions that we've had, as well as things that I've told her, and a lot of misinterpretations of my reactions. At first, I thought it was me, and that I needed to do a better job communicating and picking and choosing what words I use when we are engaging in conversations. But then it got to a point where she would tell me I said something that made her feel badly, and I know for a fact that I never said those things at all. And I know for a fact that I didn't because, for one, I'm not under the influence or anything like that when we hang out, and I also would never say those things because I don't even think in the way that she's explaining. Without getting into too many giveaway specifics, it'll be things like we are talking about a situation with my in-laws, and I say something like, yeah, Jen is really not happy with her husband right now, and I feel sorry that she has to go through that. Then, months later, Amy will try and tell me that she felt like I was judging her relationship because apparently she thinks that I said that she doesn't have enough romance between her and her husband. This threw me off completely because that conversation that she's referring to had nothing to do with her, and the conclusion that she drew from it is not an opinion I have ever held, nor have I ever or will ever care to make a judgment of, because I don't believe it's up to me to judge if someone else's relationship is romantic enough. Furthermore, in the story I was talking to her about, I specifically stated that everything that had happened with Jen came from her telling me directly, not from me extrapolating as an outsider. I really didn't know how to react, and was literally speechless for a moment before saying that I am sorry if I came off as judgmental, but the conversation wasn't about her, and that she may be mixing up different conversations. I told her that I did not judge her marriage, and have never had an opinion about it other than being happy that she is happy. But after I said that, she just blew me off, and said that she shouldn't have said anything, and that it wasn't a big deal. Fast forward, and we went on several small and big vacations together throughout the year, and she would often be upset afterwards, and tell me it was because she felt like I was so over the places that we went to, and didn't want to be there, and didn't have a good time. During the trips, she would blow me off if I offered ideas as to what to do when we were at a standstill, or if I asked if she wanted to do something on her bucket list, as I was just trying to do my very best to make sure we were both comfortable with our plans. So we usually just ended up doing whatever she liked, which was also fine with me because, socially speaking, I'm very go with the flow, and as long as I'm hanging out with my friends, I'm content. So when she would tell me that she was upset by how she perceived my behavior to be, I'd ask her to please give me some examples, because looking back, I was happy and felt fine. She would dodge answering the questions and just say that it's besides the point. I always end up acknowledging that her feelings were hurt, and that I am sorry, and I didn't intend to be hurtful or inconsiderate, but I also walk away feeling confused and unable to truly reflect on what I did wrong or how I can be better. It's gotten to the point of creating a lot of anxiety for me when I know we are going to be hanging out soon. This even happened at a holiday dinner party her in-laws hosted. My husband and I were invited, along with some mutual friends and our parents and in-laws. None of the parents and in-laws are close and only know each other through our marriages, as well as some wedding events and other activities. Amy told my parents that the dinner party was my idea, and that I had been trying to plan it somewhere else, but things were just not
working out, so her in-laws offered up their place instead so that it would work out. Again, I was speechless when I heard this because I was absolutely not planning a holiday dinner party at all. I had never told anyone I had an idea because I didn't want to host one, and it was just untrue overall. Furthermore, it made no sense that I would come to her in-laws, whom I have no relationship with, to ask them to host at their home. These situations go on and on and on, and I honestly just need help. I am a very self-aware person, and I reflect a lot on my actions and behaviors. So if I do something wrong, I'm not offended if someone calls me out on it. Amy has been in manipulative and borderline abusive relationships before, and thus being gaslight is a huge concern. I am so careful about how I approach conflicts with her because I don't want her to feel like she is being gaslit. However, I'm at such an impasse now because her memory is so bad to the point of delusions and believing something was said or something that had happened that never happened when there's no plausibility or logical sense of it happening. I'm extremely frustrated because of this, but also because she then draws from these false memories to attack my character, and I have no idea how to defend myself or straight up say, I understand why something like that would be upsetting to you, but what you are saying that happened didn't actually happen. And I don't know what to do or how to say that without her accusing me of gaslighting her. What should I do? The fact that she's manipulating you and twisting the truth, as well as spinning past events to try and favor her side and make her the victim and you the enemy, is a big red flag to me. This is a conscious choice, and at this point, it seems like she's doing this on purpose, which is entirely unfair for you, and not something that I would put up with for a second. So I think being honest with her in a nice way would go a long way with you still maintaining your friendship with her. If you really are friends, then you can be honest with each other and tell her the truth about how you feel, because she is continuously twisting the truth and changing what actually happened into something that didn't, and that honestly is not fair for you at all. My girlfriend has a disdain and general hate for everybody that she meets, and it's starting to drive a wedge in our relationship, and I don't know what to do. I've been with my girlfriend for almost 2 years now, but lately things have been kind of difficult between us. She hates everyone, and I mean literally anyone. She can't stand my friends, even though she only saw them twice, and they literally did nothing towards her. Besides greeting her, they really had no interaction at all. I think she also dislikes one of my cousins, even though he was very polite towards her, and they even laughed together a bunch of times. She met my other cousin and her boyfriend once, but after that one time, she said that she would have never wanted to see them again, and indeed, it never happened a second time. She also doesn't want to know new people because she always says that people are trash and that giving them a chance is not worth it. She also hates my mother, although I kind of understand why, since my mother can really be a jerk sometimes. In fact, she tried to sabotage our relationship in its first 3 months, despite the fact that she knew nothing about my girlfriend. My girlfriend has had only 2 friends, but she always says bad things about them, like mentioning that they are stupid or that they always talk about the same things. I have been in Discord calls with one of them along with her, and honestly, they don't seem that bad to me. She was bullied in the past, and she also has a horrible relationship with her father, and maybe these things can be the root of everything, but I've heard of people who have been through similar situations, and none of them started hating everyone like she does. She suffers from some sort of social anxiety, but she also says that she just hates people, and that's why she doesn't want to be with anyone except me. What am I supposed to do here? Should I keep going or should I break up with her? The thought of doing that really ruins me inside, because with me she is super sweet and nice, but I really don't know if this can keep going, and I don't know if this is the best thing for the both of us, so I'm honestly not sure what to do. I am honestly amazed that the original poster has lasted 2 years with his girlfriend. To be around someone that negative who literally hates everyone no matter what, without giving them any kind of chance to be on their good side or anything along those lines, has got to be exhausting. I mean, she is literally resentful of everybody across the board. That's a level of distrust and distaste towards mankind that I don't think I've ever seen in my life, not realistically at least. I personally would want to know how the original poster is feeling about all this. They can't possibly be sunshine and rainbows after being around someone who is so dark and disturbing all the time. I mean, sure, there might be people that you don't like in life. There might be people that get on your nerves or somehow make you unhappy, but that can't be everybody, right? Like, there's got to be some silver linings here. The biggest evidence of that is the fact that she has a boyfriend in the first place. She clearly likes at least one person, right? Or is she faking that as well? I'm not sure who may have disturbed her peace in the past that made her come to this point in point in her life where she hates everybody, but that is definitely something she needs to work on. And that is a massive red flag in my opinion. And it looks like after 2 years, I don't think this is ever gonna change. If anything, the older you two get, the worse this might become. So I think for your own peace of mind, it might be time to sit her down and have a serious talk about this. Because I can't imagine being in a relationship with someone for 2 years and anybody that you meet is never gonna be good enough. That sounds miserable and that does not sound like a healthy relationship. My girlfriend found out about my sketchy past, and now I'm afraid that she might break up with me and I don't know what to do. So I've been dating my girlfriend for a couple of years now. It has been a really awesome and healthy relationship, and I feel very strongly that she is someone I can see myself spending the rest of my life with. Now, for context for what I'm about to say, before getting into this relationship, I had never been in a relationship or had any experience of intimacy ever with a woman before. I had also been rejected in some really bad ways growing up, and as a result became a really bitter and frankly hate-filled person. As a result, I became someone who would lurk around and spend time online in forums and subreddits, and found myself becoming attached to these really hateful and misogynistic ideologies. I spent about a year or two in these spaces online when I was 18 and 19 years old, before slowly starting to realize I was suffering from depression and using my loneliness as an excuse to blame women and be a person I didn't want to be in a really hateful and bad way. I started going to therapy and detaching myself from this and trying to become a better person, and I can definitely say that I think I have achieved this. My relationship with my girlfriend that I have now, I honestly consider a testament to this. I feel like I've changed. Now, this past weekend, my girlfriend and I were under the influence and playing a drinking game together, and we played a game of truth or dare. When it was my turn of truth, I revealed that I was once one of these people years ago, but I grew out of it. My girlfriend was taken back by it, but we were also drunk and not privy to arguing about it. A few days later, though, my girlfriend circles back to this and tells me how disgusted she was by the thought that she's in a relationship with someone as vile as that. I told her that yes, I had vile views about women at one point, and I am ashamed of that, but now I have become a much better person since then, and that she has helped me become a person that I aspire to be, and that is honestly what matters to me. She said that this is a cop-out, and that this is something that I should have thought about or told her about at some point. I told her I was sorry, but that I didn't ever want that to come up because of how ashamed I was of it. We haven't talked for a day or two since. Now, I don't blame my girlfriend for being upset at the thought that I once was one of these guys, but I also pride myself on how I have changed and become a much better person. I hope this is something she doesn't hold so strongly against me, and that she knows me well enough to know that I'm not that guy anymore, and that I would take it all back if I could and had the chance. But can we move forward from this? I plan on going over to my girlfriend's house tomorrow to discuss this, but I need to know how I can even approach this. What should I do? I honestly don't think there's much you can do at this point. I mean, you told her the truth about it, and the ball is literally in her court to try and accept this and move on. From the sounds of it, your relationship was fantastic up to this point, and it seems like this is the only thing that's really throwing a wrench in the wheel for your girlfriend. It's not like you've changed overnight. If anything, you worked on yourself and you became a better person. So it seems a little silly to hold something against somebody when they have clearly changed as a human being. It's counterintuitive, in my opinion, to hold something against your significant other that you not only were not there for, but you also don't know all the details involving it. I mean, I'm sure your girlfriend has done some things in the past that probably would really offend you and make you think less of her. And I'm sure she's probably gotten over some of those things and wouldn't want other people to judge her based on who she once was, but rather who she is today. And I think you deserve that same right as someone who has grown and seen the error of their ways. An entitled Karen calls the cops on me for trespassing on my own property, and I honestly could not be more annoyed. First, a little bit of backstory. For most of my life, I was raised by my grandfather. Nothing was wrong with my family life or anything, just a few sets of circumstances that's a whole story in and of itself. We live in a suburban area surrounded by woods, and he owns about 10 acres into the woods, with the boundaries clearly marked by stone walls. One of these stone walls separates my grandfather's land from a cul-de-sac, and up until now, we have had zero problems with any of them. In fact, my grandfather was usually more than happy to give permission to neighbors who politely asked him to use his land. That is, if they had a good reason. One of these neighbors had asked my grandfather if he could dump the sticks and leaves in his yard over the stone wall. My grandfather agreed, as he rarely uses that part of the property anyway. This will be important later. My grandfather is very healthy for his age and is still strong as an ox. That being said, he has a few minor health issues,
issues, including vertigo spells. So I've been trying to help him around the yard more and more, as well as at the time just staying active outside and away from crowds. Recently, I've started the project of cleaning up the underbrush around the wooded area. A large pine tree had fallen a few months before and almost hit one of the porches in the cul-de-sac. My grandfather cut up the tree and removed the pieces in the neighbor's yard, but it was too deep in the woods to pull them out with the tractor. This then leads me to going back to the pine tree and trying to clear a path back to the house from there. I was behind the stone wall, cutting and pulling up saplings, when I hear a glass door of the cul-de-sac open and close as an angry, entitled Karen storms out onto the porch in a bathrobe. She looks at me and says, "What are you doing here? You can't be here." When I asked her why I'm not allowed to be here, she then said, "It's because you're trespassing, idiot. Do you think you can just hang out in the woods behind my house with my kids inside? Get out of here right now before I call the cops." At this point, I'm just looking at her, trying to figure out what to say. I mean, I get it. It can be a little weird seeing someone in the woods behind your house, especially if you haven't seen them there before. I looked at her and I said, "Ma'am, I'm sorry if I scared you, but my family owns this part of the woods. I'm just cleaning up back here. In fact, my grandfather and I were here just a few months back, taking care of that tree that fell down in the woods. I just need to clear a path so we can get it out of here." At this point, I thought it was purely a misunderstanding, so I gave her the benefit of the doubt. That is, until she made an absolute fool of herself and caused herself more problems than she probably ever thought she would need in her life. She responded and said, "Don't be ridiculous. Those were laborers that my boyfriend's dad hired. You don't own that land. My boyfriend's dad owns all of this." At this point, she gestured her hand all around her. "Now I'll tell you one more time to get out of here before I call the cops." At this point, I'm kind of at a loss because I'm really thinking that I might be dealing with a genuine idiot, because outside of property boundaries, the woods are owned by the town water plant and don't have public access. I'm also taken aback that she referred to us as laborers. So I looked her square in the eye and I said, "Guess you're just gonna have to call the cops then, because I'm not moving. And I don't care what you, your boyfriend, or your boyfriend's dad has to say about it." I shrug as I lean back against the wall and pull my phone out to call my grandfather to tell him where I was. He tells me that he will be there in a few minutes and to hang tight. She then dramatically proceeds to call 911 and tells them that there's a shady individual on her property refusing to leave, and she's afraid for her life. I start getting nervous at this point, even though all I have on me is a hooked branch cutter. So I call the police non-emergency number, and I briefly explain the situation as just a land dispute that got out of hand, and that I'm unarmed and waiting on my own property. He assured me that it would be settled when the officers arrive, which didn't help my nerves at all. Just then, I hear my grandfather pull up and see him walking through the yard towards us. The entitled Karen looks up and says, "What? Stay back, you cannot come into my yard." My grandfather growls back and says, "Keep your mouth shut, you idiot." He growled as he walked over to me and climbed over the wall so he was on my side. My grandfather then looks at this lady and says, "Now who on earth do you think you are? And why are you yelling at my grandchild?" The entitled Karen then repeats herself, "My dad owns all of this, and both of you are going to get arrested for trespassing." My grandfather then let out a dramatic, indignant laugh as he explained to this lady that she is in for a shock when she finds out that no, he does not own this land. After them yelling back and forth for a few minutes, 2 cop cars pull up and 3 officers come walking into the yard. As soon as they do, she starts screaming again about how we have no right to be in the woods behind her house where we can see her kids inside. The cop looks at my grandfather and asks if we do own the property behind the wall, to which my grandfather says yes and pulls out his wallet to show his address. I then pull out Google Maps to show the property lines of that address and how it reaches out through the woods and at the end of this wall. The cop then agrees with us, and we explain that we're back there to try and get this tree removed, as well as any remnants of the tree that fell down. Now, this is the same house of the guy that my grandfather agreed could dump his leaves and his sticks over the wall onto my grandfather's property. Eventually, that man shows up and rings out this entitled Karen for basically harassing us as we're just trying to clean up. And all the while, this entitled Karen would not stop screaming, basically claiming that my grandfather was some creepy old man, and my blood was boiling at this point. When the dust settled, the man who did own that house made this entitled Karen go inside as the cops allowed allowed me and my grandfather to go about our business. We found out a few weeks later that the entitled Karen was evicted for a number of reasons, with this little incident being the last straw. And honestly, with all things considered, I have absolutely no sympathy for this entitled Karen whatsoever. How crazy and irrational is that? To freak out on someone who's just trying to get a tree cleared out and then act like a complete fool when the owner of the house shows up and tells them basically to shut up. Good for this original poster for standing their ground and for not letting some weird entitled Karen try and boss him around. My girlfriend's family disapproves of me and forced us to break up, and I'm honestly not sure how to proceed. My girlfriend and I have now been separated for almost a month now. We dated for 1.5 years. I met her through school, so we graduated the same year, same program, same everything. We grew up and came from vastly different backgrounds. We're both Chinese Canadian, but I grew up in a closer to poverty environment, where if I wanted something, I would have to work and save up for it myself. No help from my parents, as they could not afford to do so. On the other hand, she grew up in a financially stable environment, though her parents have been separated for over 30 years, but the dad still financially supports them for everything, including all their expenses up until earlier this year. Basically, her mom doesn't approve of me because of my family background and wants her to date and marry someone who is already stable, as well as someone who can provide for themselves, if not more. And honestly, I'm just hurt by this. I cannot change my family background and how I grew up, but because of the environment I grew up in, I had to grow up very quickly and mature much faster than those my age, due to the fact that if all fails, I have no one to fall back on. In fact, I get along better with most people who are older than me and can relate with them a lot more than people my own age. When I graduated, I landed a 6-figure job that would allow me to save more money than I've ever seen in my bank account. Despite the way we grew up was so different, she was willing to work together with me to build a future together and was willing to settle for less, even though she's used to a more expensive lifestyle compared to me. She did not mind my family's background one bit. Her and I were very compatible. We can relate on most, if not everything, and we share the exact same morals, values, ethics, and goals. Some of those being moving out together and eventually being homeowners together. We both went into this relationship without the intentions of looking for a relationship. We met through school, got the same internship at the same company during our senior year, and we still hung out during every lunch break that we could. And when we first started dating, we were on the same page for everything. However, her family, mostly her mom, have been completely unsupportive of us since day one and would try everything just to break us apart. Her mom even sat her down multiple times with the rest of her family and forced her to break up with me in the past. I understand that if you live under your parents' roof, you go by their rules, but I feel like the family has overstepped the boundary here. For instance, when she wants to go out with her friends, she would need her mother's approval, even though she's in her mid-20s. And if she's not home right away after work, her mom would call her non-stop, asking her to come home right now. I notice the vibe and energy is not the same anymore each time after she has a sit-down talk with her family. So one day, I initiated the conversation, basically asking the hypothetical question of if we should just break it off, because I can see that she's very torn, as well as drained of being caught in the middle between myself and her family. Through that conversation, we agreed that it would be best because she said that she would like her family to be supportive of her in case we do not get married. Not even 1 week after our breakup, the mom got the older sister to set up my ex-girlfriend with somebody else, all because he was better off and had more money. When she told her mom she wants to get back with me because that's who truly makes her happy, her mom flipped out and said if she ever gets back with me, she will never speak to her again, practically disowning her. We're doing no contact right now because she said if she explores, she wants it to be genuine. I'm not sure what I can do next here because we both saw each other spending the rest of our lives together, all the way up until this date when we had to break it off. I can confidently say our feelings for each other has not changed one bit, despite everything that we've gone through, especially with the family. I do want to get back with her, but I'm not sure if I'm in the right place to do so. What should I do? I've got to be honest, the fact that your girlfriend didn't fight for you and say, you know what, I'm 26 years old and it's time for me to make my own decisions in my life is a giant red flag. She basically let her mom decide what she can and can't do. And I think the reason why she has to call to make sure she can come home on time or that she can even go out with her friends in the first place is because she is still enabling that behavior. And that, in my opinion, is completely inappropriate. If your ex actually cared about you, she would have fought to stay with you. And that's just my opinion. So honestly, I think you should just move on and find somebody else. It hurts. It really does. But she has been more than willing to allow her family to
to walk all over her plans. And you're making 6 figures a year. It's not like you're making some small amount of money and you wouldn't be able to support yourself as well as her in your relationship. Her family's being ridiculous. And the fact that she said nothing and let this just kind of all play out is more than enough reason, in my opinion, for you to move on and find somebody else. My husband wants no part of my family, and I honestly don't know what to do. My husband and I have been together for 8 years and have been married for 2. My family and him have always been somewhat close. He doesn't have much of a relationship with his family. There has been years of off and on drama with my family that somehow my husband gets dragged into. Through these situations, it has caused my husband to not want to be around my family. It started years ago when my younger sister and him were close. We used to hang out frequently. We planned a trip to Las Vegas for my birthday and anniversary, and he paid to have her come out and surprise me, with her just paying him back for the plane ticket. On our anniversary, we asked for some alone time and if she could hang out in the casino or the restaurant or just go shopping. 2 hours go by and she is nowhere to be found. Apparently, she got super angry that we were up there for so long and she felt like she was being ignored for hours. She finally shows up to our room and packs her stuff and switches her flight to that night. She didn't talk to us for months after that. She blocked us and ignored us at family events. Through the years, there's been more and more of these situations. She gets upset, doesn't communicate, and then blocks us. We have given her chance after chance again and again. The last straw was in August, when we planned her bachelorette party. We paid hundreds of dollars for the hotel, the decor, and the show tickets. She got upset that my sister and I wanted to have more control of the decorations, claiming that the fun was getting sucked out of it because she felt like we were just robots planning this party. She got upset and canceled the entire weekend. She even kicked us out of her wedding and said that if we showed up, we would get escorted out and that she wants nothing to do with us. We talked a week later and she said we weren't kicked out anymore and that we can come. However, I tried to discuss these issues that are repetitive and she was just super defensive. My husband and I have also had similar situations with my other sister. Although only once, we were blocked and didn't talk for almost a year. We seem to be on a better page now and things are fine for now, that is. My husband has been keeping his distance and not coming with me to dinners and other events. My mom called and asked why he hates them, and she accused me of being embarrassed of my family. And now, my husband just really doesn't want any parts of my family. My sister is getting married, and he doesn't want to attend because he just doesn't want any awkward situations, and his anxiety is bad to begin with. My husband feels my family is toxic. He doesn't have a close family, so he doesn't know what it's like to grow up super close. I'm trying to navigate this situation because I feel stuck in the middle. What should I do? The original poster is absolutely in denial. Your family is toxic. Your husband is right. These repetitive outbursts of these people moving out of your life over seemingly small instances is not cohesive to what I would call a close family. This is instead a very toxic family. Your sister is toxic, your mom is toxic, your other sister is toxic, all of them incredibly toxic. If anything, it sounds like he grew up in a healthy family and you don't know what that's like. If I was your husband in this situation, I wouldn't want anything to do with your family either. They sound horrible to deal with. It sounds like they're just a bunch of basket cases waiting to just explode on one another. And then when you pull away, they guilt trip you into coming right back in around them. And this cycle repeats on and on. And personally, I would not want anything to do with that. You claim that your husband doesn't have a close family, but honestly, I don't think you do either. Because based on the examples that you've given, your family just does not seem stable or in any way kind or understanding. And it also seems like this drama has never been addressed, which is why your sister got super defensive when you tried to talk to her about it and say, hey, this has got to stop. So maybe it's time to do some self-reflection and consider the possibility that your husband is probably right. Because if I was in his shoes, I wouldn't want to deal with this toxic garbage either. My husband wants me to cut contact with my sister because she cheats. And at this point, I don't know what to do. My husband just dropped this on me. I am totally clueless about the whole situation, and I'm not even sure how I am feeling right now. Months ago, my husband bumped into my sister's fiance. We'll call him Mark. That's not his real name. And they were not particularly close, but they knew each other. My husband was coming to pick me up for a date, and Mark was surprised because my sister told him that she was hanging out with me. And once he said that, this set off an alarm for both of them. I have to provide some clarity before the next part, because both me and my sister moved to the same city for our job, while our parents are back in our hometown. So both of us are very close and spend a lot of time together. Sometimes my sister would just show up after work and we will go and get a drink or something like that. Then, at one point, my sister told
told Mark that she was going to hang out with me again, and my husband nonchalantly mentioned it and thought we would be hanging out instead of my sister. I didn't think much of it at the time, since my sister does sometimes just show up. I ended up calling my sister to say I would be hanging out with my husband and asked her not to come along if she's planning to. My husband and Mark then take this as if I was helping cover up for my sister. They then checked both mine and my sister's phone. Of course, my husband found nothing on mine, but Mark found some text messages that definitely did not look good. They hired a private investigator to follow both me and my sister around, and they caught my sister going to a hotel with a guy multiple times. Jumping to the present day, I am very angry about this. I felt like my husband can't trust me at all, but the circumstances seem a little bit more reasonable, especially when I have the full context. I asked him why he didn't talk to me about this, and he said if I knew, my sister would know as well, and they wouldn't be able to get any evidence to prove that she was cheating. And you know what? I am angry that he is probably right. I would have most definitely talked to my sister if I had known what was going on and tried to talk her out of it. My husband now wants me to cut contact with my sister because he said we are too close, and he is worried that she will be a bad influence. Our relationship will be over if he found out I'm helping my sister. But the thing is, my sister has been my support when I am going through hardship, and now that she is going through a problem, I can't imagine not being there for her. I also hate the fact that I know I should be angry with my sister rather than my husband, but I just don't in this situation. What should I do? I think you need to understand that your sister's problem is absolutely her own problem. She did this to herself. She blatantly cheated, and she used you to try and cover up for those cheating incidents, and she got caught red-handed. But with that in mind, I think it's incredibly inappropriate for the original poster's spouse to give them some kind of ultimatum, to say, you know what, you can't support your sister anymore or I'm gonna walk out on you. Yeah, you can be upset with your siblings' decisions, but to say you can never talk to them ever again because of this seems incredibly ridiculous and a little extreme in my opinion. So I honestly think having a conversation about this would really go a long way, because cutting a sibling out of your life is not nearly as cut and dry as that, and the original poster's husband needs to understand that it's not nearly that simple. There is a lot of nuance and a lot of gray area there, and that kind of decision deserves a lot of thought. My parents are hostile to my fiance over his lack of education, and I honestly don't know what to do. We've been together for 3 years and engaged for 2 months. I come from a highly formal educated family. Both of my parents have master's degrees. 3 of 4 of my grandparents attended college, and 1 of my siblings has a PhD. I've got my undergrad, but personally, I probably wouldn't have gotten it if it wasn't on a full scholarship, which I got because I had insane tiger parents. I've had a lovely career in a different field that I studied, and will not be treating my children in close to the same manner that my parents treated me. My fiance was not as fortunate. His family didn't put any value on education, so he was never pushed to be a good student, and very likely had a learning disorder that was never fully addressed. His dad walked out on his family when he was 16, and he went to work to support his mom. He's highly intelligent and a hard worker, but he can come off as kind of ignorant. His basic history knowledge is patchy, he struggles with writing, and he doesn't use proper grammar when he speaks. But this hasn't been a hurdle in his professional or personal life though. My parents haven't been very accepting of this. They only met him a few times while we were dating, since they live across the country from me and don't visit much. They were cold to him and kept leaving him out of the conversation, even when it was on a subject that my fiance knows something about. Since we've gotten engaged, they've been begging me to turn him down and move on, with various hypothetical scenarios of how awful my life will be if I marry someone lacking in education. I've told them point blank that they don't have any say in this decision, and I've been ignoring them ever since then. I'm fine limiting contact with my parents until they come around. They will eventually accept the situation, seeing as they behave pretty similarly when one of my siblings married a 21-year-old and another enlisted in the army, but it's going to take longer than we'll be engaged. It's also not important to me to have a super close relationship with them. There have been periods in my life where we don't have any relationship. They aren't the greatest people, and I've gone all of my adult life without their financial or emotional support. However, my fiance is incredibly upset and wants them to like him. He knew this was going to be a possibility, but the reality hit him like a steamroller. I tried to prepare him for this as best as I could, but given my parents don't visit often, and we have jobs that prevent us from flying across 3 different time zones, there weren't enough opportunities for him to see what kind of jerks they really can be. He also really doesn't like the idea of limiting contact with my parents. He is very tight with his own family and can't fathom the idea of mine being cut out. At this point, I'm not sure how to intervene on both fronts. My parents are going to need time and years to get used to this reality, and I'm not going to be able to force them to accept him. I don't think I can get my fiance to just let the situation go and wait it out with me though. So I'm kind of at a crossroads and I really don't know what to do. I think the old saying of "it takes one to know one" really does come into play here, because it sounds like your fiance just doesn't understand how toxic your family was early in your life. It sounds like they really pushed you to get an education, and they put a lot of value on that as opposed to who you are as a person. And I mean, sure, absolutely, education's important, don't get me wrong, but it kind of seems like your parents had their priorities mixed up. And it's also kind of alarming that they would treat your future husband like this. Your fiance clearly came from an unfortunate circumstance, and he did not have the opportunities that you as well as your parents probably did have. So it's unfair for them to make some kind of character assessment based on the education that he wasn't allowed to have. He had to start working when he was 16 just to support his family. I'm sure your life would be much different if you were in that situation as well. So your parents are being super unreasonable here. If anything, it might be time for your fiance to spend more time around your parents. Maybe then he can really see how toxic and abusive these people really are. Either way, hopefully this all gets worked out for you. And hopefully your parents don't play any role in ruining this relationship you have with your fiance. An entitled Karen tries to steal my seat on a plane by creating a fake plane ticket with a fake seat number. Things got so bad that the stewardess had to get involved just to settle the matter. Here's what happened. So for a bit of context, I love to do volunteer work. I like volunteering in general and working with kids, and I want to see the world. So this combines all of those things and is generally a cheaper way to travel. For this particular outing, my sister wanted to come along for the trip with me. My sister and I went to work in Peru for a week over Thanksgiving break. The mother of my sister's best friend is a supposed travel agent, and that's a loose term if anything. So when I wanted to book the flights, my sister insisted on her friend's mom. Instead of a direct flight, this lady booked us on 3 flights both ways. She got my sister a window or aisle seat on all 6 flights and put me in the middle seat on all of the flights as well. She didn't even ask if I would have cared having someone sit between us. My sister is also half a foot shorter than me, so I can use the legroom. On the way back, I even asked her if she would trade me for one flight, and she said no. My sister is a bit selfish and just doesn't understand what it means to sacrifice for other people. So anyways, we got to one location where we had a 2-hour layover. I figured it was worth a shot trying to talk to the gate person and seeing what they could do. I asked if there were any seats on the plane that wasn't in the middle. She checked and said that there was one open one in the same aisle as my sister, so we could actually still sit together. And when I heard this, I was thrilled. So she printed my new ticket with my new seat on it. My sister had the window seat like she preferred, and I had the aisle seat like I preferred. Everything was right in the world. After a couple of hours, we boarded the plane. We got to our row, and my sister goes in first. We're both just sitting there when a woman comes by and says that she's sitting in our aisle. I get up so she has room to get in and doesn't have to try and scoot past us just to get to her seat. Or so I assumed. We said hello and we exchanged a smile, and that's when this entitled Karen flipped a switch and decided to go full crazy on me. She looks at me and says, "You can go in now." I looked at her and I was a little confused, so I said, "Oh, I actually have the aisle seat," realizing that she was probably thinking that she was sitting where I was sitting. This entitled Karen then said, "Okay, then she," pointing at my sister, "should get out of the aisle so I can sit at the window seat." Now, the entire time she was making these demands, she had a weird smile on her face, as if all of this was completely fine. So after I explained to her that she can't do that because that's her seat, she then says, "Okay, then I'll just take the aisle seat." And the entire time she's still smiling and acting like all of this is totally normal. So I said, "I'm sorry, but I'm a little confused. My sister has the window seat and I have the aisle." And then all of a sudden, this entitled Karen acted so exhausted with the situation and pretended basically that we're stupid. "Look, I'm willing to take either the aisle or the window. You can sit next to your sister either way." She then started smiling again as if she's doing us a favor. I explained to her my situation and I said that I exchanged my ticket so I could have the aisle seat. And at this point, we're just standing in the aisle, blocking people boarding the plane. Eventually, the stewardess comes over and asks what is happening. And this entitled Karen chimes in before I even have the chance and makes the claim that I'm not moving to my seat. So I hold up my ticket and I say, "My ticket has me sitting at 23C, which puts me in the aisle seat." But this entitled Karen chimes in and holds up her ticket that also says that she has 23C. So at this point, I'm thinking that maybe there was a mistake with the airline and the seat wasn't really open and the gate agent printed me a new ticket, but this woman had the same seat on her ticket. We both got our tickets out and handed them to the stewardess. I hand her mine first, clearly showing that it says 23C, and then I noticed the entitled Karen's ticket. I don't know what was written on it originally, but she had crossed out her seat number and written in pen that she has 23C on the ticket. It was very clear that my ticket was real and hers was entirely fabricated. I explained again to this stewardess that I exchanged my middle seat for the aisle seat before I got on the plane, and that is when this entitled Karen exploded. "I can't sit in the middle. I'm even willing to take the window seat. You should be sitting with your sister anyways." At this point, the stewardess clearly wanted to take care of this as fast as possible because it was holding up the entire plane. She told the lady she could find a new seat, but she couldn't have one that was already assigned. This entitled Karen was then begrudgingly taken to a new seat near the very back of the plane. I politely shifted into the row so she could get her bag down to move to the new overhead holder. She gave me and my sister the stink eye and aggressively grabbed the bag. Once she started walking to the back, she turned her stink eye to the stewardess, who kindly found her a non-middle seat and was nothing but polite. Me and my sister ended up with our window and aisle seat. And even better, nobody sat in the middle. We had a bunch of extra room, we didn't have to share the armrests, and we were able to put our bag in the empty seat. My sister had been looking away the whole time because she's so shy and can't deal with confrontation. Once the woman had walked far enough away, she finally smiled at me and we joked a little about all the space we finally had. And to top it all off, I didn't see any other rows with an empty seat. So to be honest, we really lucked out. Later in the flight, my sister went to the bathroom at one point, and when she came back, she said that she saw the lady sitting at almost the last row and was pretty squished in. So next time, this entitled Karen should probably not try to forge a ticket just to try and steal somebody's seat. I gotta be honest, you've gotta be pretty dumb to think you can get away with that on an airplane. This entitled Karen really thought she would get away with writing down a new seat on her plane ticket to try and steal the seat from the original poster. That is such a toxic thing to do. Hopefully this entitled Karen learned her lesson and doesn't try to steal someone else's plane ticket just to fit her own selfish needs. This next one came from the Am I the Jerk podcast subreddit. Check the links in the description if you'd like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for ignoring my boyfriend the day of my mother's funeral? My boyfriend and I just got into a major fight that might break us up, and I'm wondering if I might be in the wrong here. For some backstory, my boyfriend and I are slightly in a long-distance relationship. This has been going on for the past 6 months due to me being in college. We met in high school and recently reconnected. We talk daily and we see each other about every other weekend. That is, unless I really need to focus on homework or if he has to work. We've been doing really well. Unfortunately, my mother just passed away about a week ago. Now onto the dirty laundry. As I stated before, my boyfriend and I have done great with a long-distance relationship the past 6 months. We have been great with communication and we've had minimal fighting throughout the relationship. Our fighting this past week has been completely out of left field and right after my mother passed away suddenly with no warning. The first night I was completely in shock, like this wasn't really happening. The next few days I felt like I was on autopilot and have been withdrawn from everything, all while trying to plan everything so my grandma and my 2 brothers didn't have to deal with much while they were grieving. I have always been the one to help my family out in emergency or difficult situations. Plus, I was the only one who would have known her full wishes after passing away. Well, yesterday was her funeral. My boyfriend called me on his lunch break at 11 o'clock because he was unable to be there physically, which I completely understood, and got off completely at 6 o'clock in the evening. He called to check on me when he left work, but I was at dinner and trying to hold it together as much as possible. As a result, I didn't feel my phone vibrate, which I usually don't have on, but it was turned on during the funeral and I never turned it off. I finally got home at about 10 o'clock at night. Once I got home, I got in the shower and I was in no rush to call him because I just needed to be alone for a minute after dealing with people and my own feelings all day. I was just mentally exhausted and needed a few minutes alone. I called him at about 11 o'clock at night and he answered the phone with one simple question. Were you busy or were you just blatantly ignoring me? I was taken back by this and simply just responded by saying, "Excuse me?" He then accused me of just ignoring him and shutting him out, even though I've tried to explain to him that I've been on autopilot mentally and I didn't even notice my phone. I apologized at first, but then he kept going on about how upset and disappointed he was that I just ignored him all day when he was just trying to check in on me and how rude I was for ignoring that. He went on this rant for a solid hour. Eventually, I got mad and I said, "I don't need this right now," and I hung up the phone. I then turned off my phone so I could just go back to bed, or at least try
try to. I eventually woke up after a few hours of sleep and turned on my phone, and little did I know I would regret that decision. I was flooded with notifications from him, as well as his brother calling me selfish for ignoring him and turning off my phone. My brother called me a few hours later because my boyfriend has been texting both me and my brothers multiple paragraphs about how rude I was, to ignore him all day, and then just to hang up on him when he was just explaining how hurt he was by my actions. And now I won't respond knowing he can see me and that I'm reading his text messages because of read receipts. My brothers did stand up for me, and I am grateful for them doing so, but at the same time, I'm honestly shocked by this behavior. I'm starting to think that maybe I'm just being overly emotional and responded horribly. So it begs the question, am I the jerk for this situation? You are not the jerk for this situation. If anything, your boyfriend is a massive jerk, and he is a terrible boyfriend. The fact that he went in on you for being emotionally disconnected on the day of your mother's funeral and then try and spin it about how he feels and how he's so offended by your actions is so unbelievably toxic, I don't even know what else to say. This guy, in my opinion, is so self-centered and unbelievably toxic for doing this to you that it does not warrant any kind of apology from you. You didn't do anything wrong. And also, how can he not understand that you not being available has to do with the fact that your mother just passed away and you literally just had her funeral the same day? I mean, how unbelievably selfish, condescending, and ignorant can you possibly be to act this entitled in this kind of situation? So honestly, you are not at fault here. Your boyfriend is a piece of garbage for acting like this, and if anything, he should be ashamed of himself. An entitled guest makes a mess, lies to the front staff, and acts generally incredibly hostile. Here's what happened. Last night, at the hotel I work at, we had some serious idiots staying with us. They had originally checked in Saturday night, and we really should not have let them stay Sunday, because they came in and they smelled terrible because they had been smoking a lot of the herb, if you know what I mean. And this was in rooms where you're not allowed to do that. But housekeeping was already overwhelmed, so the owner decided that we would just let them stay. Late last night, someone came asking for a key to one of their rooms, but unfortunately, this person's name was not on either of the rooms, so the front desk apologized and said that she couldn't provide them a key as their name was not on the room. This person then got argumentative with her and said that the person who rented the room was currently at the club and unable to come provide her ID. They went back and forth, getting more and more irritated at this mysterious guest, and the woman at the front desk started getting overwhelmed and started shaking. Finally, the girl who rented the rooms came in asking for a key, apparently not having been at the club at all. She also started being rude towards the front desk, who ultimately had to call the police to have them removed. This morning when I came in for my shift, the girl I replaced replayed me all of this and also expressed worry that the people knew her name because someone called an hour after the police left and asked her some questions, trying to get information out of her. So needless to say, she was worried. Today, when housekeeping went to check the rooms, they found out that they had been smoking in it non-stop. There were ashes and debris all over the place. We tried to charge the card on file for the rest of the smoking fee not covered by the deposit, but as expected, they were just a bunch of broke losers. Now, this is where I wish the story would have ended, but there's a lot more after this. About 20 minutes ago, some more news developed that added another chapter to this story. I get a call asking for the manager, and the caller was in luck as I happened to be the manager on duty. She asked if we had an employer whose name was Stephanie. For the record, we don't have someone by that name, so I told her this. She then asked if we have any employees whose names start with the letter S, which again, we also don't. At this point, the person on the other line gives up and says that they just need to make a complaint against the girl who was working last night. In fairness, the girl who worked last night, her name does start with an S sound, but I wasn't about to tell the caller this, having realized that it was the person from last night. But I did politely let them give me their version of the events, knowing full well that it's a complete lie. I know better than to stop an opponent from making a mistake. So their tall tale included the friends being refused access to their room, saying that the front desk lady from last night was extremely rude, and that the cops were called for no reason. I already knew that the girl from last night was not rude to them. I watched the security footage from the event, and also, the girl in question doesn't have a mean bone in her body. I don't think she could be rude even if she tried. Anyway, the caller informed me that she wanted at least half of her money back because of what happened. I informed her that she would get nothing back, as I reviewed the footage and knew exactly what had transpired. And furthermore, both rooms had been heavily smoked in. They told me they thought the rooms were smoking rooms because they smelled smelled like smoke at check-in, but she also claimed that they called the desk to let them know that the room smelled like smoke, which I don't know why you would do that if you thought it was a smoking room. I told them no, all of our rooms are non-smoking, and the paper they signed at the check-in says as much. Plus, even if it smells like smoke, there were ashes and debris everywhere. At that point, she realized that she had lost and informed me she and her friends wouldn't be coming back. I don't know why she thought threatening me with a good time would mean anything, and I wish I had said, I don't know why you would think we would want you back here, but instead, I just said, you wouldn't be welcome back even if you tried. She eventually hung up, and me and the owner laughed about how dumb they were, and we haven't seen them ever since. I always hate it in customer service when someone just straight up lies to you about what happened just to try and get a deal. You must have a very low moral standard to just blatantly lie after you were a complete nightmare to that poor girl who had to put up with you. Hopefully those people learn their lesson that you can't treat people like garbage and expect to get your way. An entitled customer loses their mind when they aren't given exactly what they want for their hotel stay. Things got so bad that I ended up having to refuse them service and basically told them that they're out of luck. Here's what happened. So I'm working the morning shift and it's already busy as soon as I clock in at 7 in the morning. 5 minutes later, I get a call from a guest in room 303. Upon answering, the guest explains that he wants to book a night in the same room and that he's going to be making a new reservation through a third party right now. So I say, okay, go for it. But when I check our availability real quick, I find that there's no available rooms for his room type. He's sleeping with a single queen bed. However, there are 2 more double queen rooms available. As I was explaining the issue to him, and as I was about to go through possible workarounds, he interrupted me and said, so you're saying that I have to leave at 11 o'clock and I have to wait until 3 p.m. to get back into this very same room? I'm still thinking about where the miscommunication occurred, where he assumed that that would be the case. I didn't even mention departure times in the conversation. His tone of voice was a blend of angry and entitlement, as he was very belittling towards me, and it's the kind that sends you shaking and makes you think that you got into trouble. I say, no, that's not what's going on. Let me explain. And before I even get a chance to explain, you guessed it, the guest tells me the same thing, repeating himself again, but this time raising his voice. So I have to leave at 11 o'clock just to get into the same room later. I'm paying for this new reservation right now. At this point, he's just angry. With pretty much a sold out night, I'm tired of his antics already, and I've decided to pull the plug on him, seeing as how he was making me emotional at this point. So I say to him, yes, you'll leave at 11, just like you said. And after I said that, I hung up the phone. At this point, I'm looking to see where his reservation is, when a few minutes later, he calls the desk again. He says, can I get transferred to customer service? And before I could even explain who he actually has to call, as this is just the front desk and not some directory, the guest interrupts me and keeps repeating over and over again, requesting that I transfer him to customer service. And the entire time he was just getting angrier and angrier before I even could explain that this is not the number for customer service. Eventually, after screaming into the phone, he's the one that hangs up the phone first. At this point, this man is going absolutely insane, which is definitely not good for the hotel. I figure I've already told him that he needs to check out at 11 o'clock, and I'll just make some notes about it in the meantime. About 20 minutes later, I get a call from our customer service line for the hotel. They reference the problem guest and ask me why I am making him check out at 11 o'clock and then back in at 3 p.m. Keep in mind, the problem guest booked through a third party, so I explain myself. I tell the agent that we are sold out tonight, and the guest was making grand assumptions that I have no control over. I reiterate that the guest is checking out by 11, but I am now refusing service to him due to his bad behavior. The customer service agent says they understand and that they'll explain this to the guest. Meanwhile, I find that the problem guest did indeed make a reservation and already paid for double queen room from the third party that definitely wasn't his room type. This is not good. At this point, I already refused service to the guest, so I'll have to call him back. When he answers the phone, I tell him that I found his double queen reservation, and before I could tell him that I'm refusing him service, he interrupted me again and said, yeah, I booked that reservation, but I'll be staying in this room. And after that, he says some really bad swear words and hangs up the phone. At this point, it was 9 o'clock in the morning, and the problem guest had kept their room until 11 o'clock a.m. Eventually, this problem guest comes down from his room. His hair is unkept, and he has the actual gall to ask for a breakfast bag. He even introduced himself. By the way, I'm the guy from 303, and I won't be leaving my room. I'm just here to get my breakfast bag. At this point, I stifled a laugh. I said, oh, okay, I'm not getting you a breakfast bag. I'm refusing you service, sir. The problem guest just scoffed at me and repeated what I said
under his breath, and then he left without saying anything else. And I've got to be honest, I was surprised that he left it at that, and I thought that probably was the end of it. But either way, I at least got my intentions out, and I told him that I would not be providing him any service. But unfortunately, that wasn't the end of it. I get another call from our hotel customer service asking why I wasn't giving this problem guest his breakfast bag. So I told them pretty much the same thing, though I definitely added the fact that he swore at me on the phone and was harassing me at this point with these calls. And as a result, I'm refusing service to him. The agent understood, but asked if there's anything we could do to resolve the conflict. I told them that I was willing to cancel and refund the problem guest's reservation if he contacts the third party about it. Eventually, this guy finds his way back to my front desk, and he's leaning against this desk in a defensive posture. He comes up looking apologetic and says, "Can we start over?" And at this point, I mull it over. But if he really wants to start over, then he has to first hear how he affected me. I look him in the eyes and I tell him point blank, "I didn't appreciate your behavior towards me one bit this morning." He then says, "I'm sorry if I was a bit rude, but you were being just as bad. Did you know that I just found out that I have cancer, and then you refused me service and breakfast?" And at this point, he's trying to gaslight me. I then determine that he doesn't want to start over. So I reply and say, "You think that you having cancer gives you the right to behave like this towards me?" The problem guest then begins strafing as he's ranting at me saying, "I haven't done anything rude towards you at all." I check the lobby and I see that it's empty. So I explain to him that he swore at me on the phone, and I emphasize the words that he used specifically. He then doubles down and says that he's just trying to stay here a little bit longer because he has cancer. He then tries to guilt trip me by saying, "Would you really try and kick someone out who has cancer?" And at this point, I'm just absolutely done because I cannot believe that he's put me on the spot. But I figure that consistency is key. I say, "Yes, I'm refusing service to you specifically for your behavior. We don't have any rooms for you." He yells back at me and says, "I'm going to be on the street because of you." I switch the conversation slightly and I say, "Don't worry about it. I have no problems in canceling your reservation you just made. However, you have to contact the third party that you paid and tell them about this situation so you can be refunded." He tries to claim that it's a non-refundable reservation just to try and skate around the system, but I explain that no, he will get his money back as long as he contacts the third party. With that, he went back to his room. The problem guest bothered me no more. I got a call from his third party and we got this idiot his refund. He left the room in good condition, and I think he left at the side entrance because I never saw him again. He started with a bang and ended with a whimper. When it comes to my work, it's not worth arguing with people like this, especially when the night's coming up and I know for a fact that we're going to be busy. The thing is, he probably would have gotten his wish if he wasn't so mean. I would have just happily switched things around for him so he could just stay in his same room. But instead, he decided to act entitled and act incredibly rude and completely inappropriate. That problematic guest is an absolute jerk. If he was just a little bit nicer, he would have gotten his way, and he would have been able to keep his room without any kind of fanfare, or at least treating this front desk worker like garbage. And the amount of gaslighting and guilt tripping that this guy was participating in was absolutely disgusting. So honestly, good riddance. And for the sake of the original poster, I hope this guy never goes back to that hotel ever again. An entitled customer tries to dine and dash, walking out on his bill and refusing to pay. Things got so bad that we had to block all the exits to prevent him from leaving, as well as call the cops. Here's what happened. First off, this guy seemed kinda sketchy from the start. He had poor hygiene, he was mumbling his words, and he was avoiding eye contact with just about everybody. But I figured maybe he was just having a bad day and wanted to be left alone. Then, gradually over the course of serving him, I got the sense that he was gonna try to leave without paying. And sure enough, I was right. First, he tried to duck out through the back exit near the restrooms. But by that point, we had caught on and had a couple co-workers camping right there waiting for him. But when he came back out and saw that we were waiting for him, he went back to the lobby and tried to leave through the front. But I ran back around and was waiting for him there too. Deprived of a clean escape, he sulked back to his table in the corner of the restaurant, and I brought him his check. He spent a long time looking at it, presumably trying to figure out how to get out of paying for it, if not just delaying the inevitable. In between helping my other tables, I saw him pull out some piece of paper out of his pocket and start cross-referencing them with the check. It was weird, but hey, I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, and figured maybe he was checking a bank receipt to see how much money he had or something like that. But boy was I wrong. Eventually, he had the gall to just get up and try walking out the front exit again, which I again was waiting for him, and I reminded him that he needed to pay pay his bill. He pulled the papers out of his pocket and showed them to me, and it was a receipt for a Big 5 sporting goods, and he pointed to them and assured me that the numbers are all there. I was taken back by this display of sheer stupidity, but maintained composure and calmly informed him that, surprisingly enough, our bar is not associated with Big 5 sporting goods, and that he would need to pay with either cash or credit. This went on for about 5 minutes, him trying to convince me that somehow his $5 store credit at a sports retailer could cover his $50 tab at our bar, as well as me fluctuating between frustration and stupefied amusement. Eventually, some other coworkers had gathered around, and we collectively made it clear that he needed to either pay or we would call the police, at which point he defaulted to his backup plan, which was for him to explain to us that he was not aware that this was a restaurant. This man literally came in, sat down, and ordered food. I mean, did he think he was at a car wash or something? I looked him in the eyes and I sternly said, "You're not talking your way out of this." And he finally seemed to get the hint. With his genius plans foiled, he just shrugged and said that he couldn't afford to pay the bill. However, as our manager prepared to call the police, someone at a table nearby offered to pay it for him, and so he walked out a free man. I had mixed feelings about this, because if the guy doesn't have any money to pay for the food, then he's clearly in a bad spot, and getting booked by the police won't help his situation at all. But I also felt frustrated that he just got to wipe his hands clean of the ordeal and leave without a consequence. I also felt entirely offended that he thought we were stupid enough to buy his garbage, as well as his nonsensical excuses. But thankfully, as icing on top of this cake, I stuck my head out the door after him and told him to never come back. So all things considered, that felt pretty good. That is absolutely insane to me. How could someone honestly go into a restaurant, buy a bunch of food, and then just start making excuses as to why they couldn't pay for the bill? What a toxic thing to do. It does kind of sound like this guy might have been homeless or something like that, but even then, he knows better than to try and do that. This guy could have ended up in jail for trying to dine and dash, which, by the way, is really serious. You do not want to try doing that. But clearly this guy had a lucky streak, and somebody paid for him before he could get in trouble. So hopefully next time he learns his lesson and doesn't go to a restaurant without some kind of money to pay for his meal. My boyfriend read my journal and saw some deep dark secrets that I just wanted to keep to myself. And now, as a result, he hasn't spoken to me since, and I honestly don't know what to do. I am in a relationship with John, that's not his real name, and we've been together for 3 years. And just last night, he saw something in my journal that I know was concerning, and now I don't know what to do about this situation. I was journaling a week ago, after coming home drunk from the club with some friends. I had felt pretty set off by somebody there, who had been a tiny bit of a creep, but when I got home, I realized a lot of the rage I was feeling was misdirected. I was also just feeling furious about someone who hurt me many years ago, and I kind of had a breakthrough that the reason I get so absolutely furious whenever someone crosses a line with me is not about them. It's mostly that I'm furious about that one guy from my past, and I'm lashing out at other people who did more minor stuff to me because I have a lot of repressed feelings. And like I said, this was a major breakthrough for me, so I decided I'd let myself be honest with myself for once and put it in words in my journal. And after writing for a long while, I felt unburdened. I felt ready to bring my journal to therapy and honestly talk through it without repressed feelings. After journaling, I went outside to meditate and calm down my mind before bed. I did a meditation where I dug a hole with my hands and placed my hands inside to push out all the anger and sadness out of my body to bury it into the earth. When I was sitting outside, I saw my boyfriend pull into the driveway and go inside, and I decided that I'd finish my meditation and then go in. But a few minutes later, I saw him leave again. I went inside to grab my phone and ask him where he was going at 2 in the morning. I figured maybe he forgot something at his apartment and was going to grab it before staying the night. I called him several times and he didn't pick up, which I thought was really weird. Then I saw my journal still left open on the coffee table, and I was writing a lot bigger than I usually do when I was upset. And a lot of the stuff that I had written in my anger was pretty concerning, I will admit. I was talking about how I wanted the guy that had hurt me in the past to have the worst future possible, and how I dreamed and fantasized about this person having so many terrible things happen to them. And I went into really explicit detail just to get these feelings off my chest. And I will say that when it comes down to it, I really did want some terribly dark things to happen to this man who had hurt me in the past. But on the next page, in a lot of smaller writing, I've been writing about how I didn't actually want that, and I was just angry, but I hated and felt shame that I still hold that anger in myself. And I really wanted to get to a point where I could find peace, regardless of whether
whether or not he's alive, and not blame myself for not being able to stop him from doing what he did to me. I also wrote down that I'm going to focus on facing my feelings head on and working through them because I don't want to be that type of person who carries this rage for the rest of my life. It's also really important to note that I never told my boyfriend about this situation with this man in my past, so I realized right away that he basically walked in to see pages of really vile stuff written out about some man that he'd never heard of. He texted me later and said, "I saw your journal and I'm going to need some space to think. Please don't call me again." And he hasn't spoken to me since. I don't know what to do. I texted him asking to talk and he never replied. I just want to explain myself, but he won't talk to me and I'm really struggling. What should I do? This is a really unfortunate situation because it sounds like you're doing everything you can to heal from this situation. You are literally going through all the steps you possibly could to try and heal this situation in your life. And that's awesome, but it's equally as disappointing that your boyfriend is overreacting like this. The fact that he's saying, "Oh, don't talk to me, I read your journal," is really inappropriate. He read a small piece of what was supposed to be private and decided, nope, this is exactly how my girlfriend feels, which is just really immature in my opinion. Yes, these problems with this other man in the past is something that you kept private because I'm sure it was probably really triggering and is something that you don't really want to talk about. So it would make sense that you're not feeling ready to talk about this with your boyfriend. So maybe talking to him when he's ready and explaining fully in detail how you actually feel about this situation, as well as reading him excerpts of how you don't actually feel this way about this person, would probably be for the best. Because right now it seems like he's just overreacting, and that's honestly not fair for you at all. My parents are obviously never going to accept my boyfriend, and I'm not sure what to do. I recently introduced my boyfriend of over a year to my Indian immigrant parents. For context, my boyfriend was completely comfortable with me waiting to tell my parents until I felt we were meant to be a lifelong situation. He understood how my family dynamic worked and wouldn't put me in any uncomfortable situation. My parents don't believe in casual dating, so I would never introduce a partner to them if it's not serious. My parents are moving to Texas next week, and I will be living with my sister, who I am very close to, as well as her husband in a house they rent from my parents. My parents are paying my bills, such as car insurance, phone bill, and health insurance, until I graduate university in December. I do work now, and I make about $2,400 a month. I have already accepted a job offer to work immediately after graduation, and I will be getting my own place, so I will be completely independent from them at that point. My dad and I do not have a good relationship, and he constantly disrespects me. I have tried for years to get him to like me as much as my sister, and it's been exhausting. I've never truly felt like he's loved me, but more that he wants to control me. My mom and I generally are pretty close, and though she has stood up to my dad for me, she very often enables his behavior. As harsh as it sounds, I can't genuinely say I love my dad and mean it because of how much I had to face in life because of him. I think he only agrees to taking care of me financially right now because my parents did the same for my sister when she was in college. And if he didn't do the same for me, it would be a dead giveaway of his true feelings about me. My mom would also never allow that level of favoritism, and she wants me to focus on saving money. He used to be a very good father when we were younger, but it's almost like he's gotten darker and meaner over time. I told them last week that I was in a serious relationship and would like them to meet him before they left. They agreed, and they met him yesterday. My boyfriend is not Indian, but my sister's husband is also not Indian, so they weren't shocked or upset. They met him, and he was being very polite and kind, but I kept catching my dad giving him death glares. Then during dinner, my dad brought up religion. He is very religious and Catholic, and asked my boyfriend if he would be willing to convert to Catholicism for me. To be clear, I am not religious. I do not appreciate the Catholic Church and harbor a lot of religious trauma. I told him that this is not the time to talk about these things because I don't care if he is Catholic or not. My boyfriend is Christian, but not heavily involved in church or very religious by any means. I don't want him to convert to anything unless he made that decision purely based on what he wants for himself. If I wanted a practicing Catholic, I would find someone who is already that. My mom finally changed the subject because she knows how I feel. Both my parents drank way too much that night. My mom is a sloppy drunk, and my dad gets very aggressive. My mom asked my boyfriend about his tattoos and their meaning, and though she is accepting of those things, my dad absolutely is not. He literally called my boyfriend stupid, and my boyfriend, trying to remain polite, just laughed it off. My dad then aggressively started yelling, asking him what makes him think he even deserves me and why he even likes me, because my dad doesn't see
the appeal of me. My dad constantly told me to shut up, as well as calling me stupid anytime I literally said anything, and I was reaching my breaking point. The night finally concluded, and my boyfriend wasn't upset and said it was pretty much what he expected from what I told him about my parents. He maintained his composure all night regardless of what they were saying to him. Come today, I woke up very upset thinking about how my dad treated me last night, and it was clear to me that he wasn't going to get along with my boyfriend. To be very clear, I will choose my partner over them anytime. I just don't know how to navigate this situation until I am free from under their thumb. My birthday is the end of this month, and they plan to fly out here for my birthday. I don't want to celebrate my birthday with them if my boyfriend can't be involved, but I also don't want to put him in any more uncomfortable situations with them. What should I do? The way your parents are acting is really toxic, and to be honest, your happiness and emotional well-being is and always should be your top priority. I think, in my opinion, you have a great boyfriend with you. He kept his composure despite your dad being incredibly toxic, and that, in my opinion, is a really good sign that he can handle conflict well and he won't be like your father at all. When it comes to being underneath your parents' thumb, you need to know that eventually, once you graduate, they will have no say in your life or what you can and cannot do. So I would start preparing now of how you can best accommodate that. Get lined up with a solid job as well as a solid living condition so that you don't have to deal with them in any way, shape, or form. When it comes to your birthday, there's no reason you can't spend time with your parents as well as your boyfriend. You could even try and see if this could be a separate occasion, making it so you can still spend time with your boyfriend while keeping him away from your toxic dad. Either way, you need to do what's best for you because your dad does not determine your life and he should not dictate your future path. My entitled parents planned me a surprise birthday party, but then made me pay for the whole event after the fact, and I'm honestly just very annoyed at what happened. So for my 21st birthday, my parents planned a surprise birthday party at this theme bar with my roommates. For some context, I had just gotten out of the hospital with permission from my doctor to only have about one shot of alcohol, and at the time I was still recovering, so all my money has gone to medical bills and recovery. I didn't have a lot on me or in my bank account. We get to the party, and the party was great. My parents told me that they were going to leave early because they can't stay up till 3 a.m. drinking and partying, which is understandable. On the way out, my dad walks over to me, and keep in mind, I'm very tipsy at this point. I only had as much as I was allowed, but due to my blood alcohol ratio, it was a lot for me. My dad then whispers in my ear and says, "Hey bud, happy birthday. You know my mom and I are low on cash. Can you pay for tonight? I'll pay you back, no problem." But little did I know, the bill at this point was over $400. Without having a single clue as to what I was getting into, in my dazed state, I said, yeah, I'll do it. When I paid for everything, it overcharged my card and costed me an extra $30 the next day. Thankfully, my roommates, being the beautiful people that they are, helped me out as I didn't have any money and paid the $30 and then some, just so my bank account wouldn't yell at me. Now you may be wondering at this point, did you ever get paid back? Well, I'm 24 now, and I never did get paid back. Every time I bring it up to my father, he says that he will do it, and then he never does it. And this is a rinse and repeat situation where he never gets it done. If you can't pay for a party you're hosting or planning, then don't plan it. I would have been totally fine having a small party at home with some wine coolers or something like that, which would have been much cheaper if I had to pay for it with my limited funds. And with that in mind, how is this celebrating my day in the slightest, especially if they're not going to host it themselves? Overall, it was a pretty miserable experience, and thankfully, now that we live far enough away, I don't have to deal with this type of stuff ever again. That's really disgusting behavior, to be honest. This person's parents basically said, "Hey, we're gonna throw you a party," and then left you with the bill. I mean, what kind of host is that? And also, what kind of parents are that? They already know that you're in the hospital in the first place and you have some medical issues going on, so it's not like you have a lot of money to begin with. So why on earth would he plan this expensive party and then throw it on their kid just to be like, okay, it's now your problem, son? I think if anything, that just means that you don't have to worry about any Christmas gifts for the next few years. If they ever complain, just be like, sorry, you still owe me like $400. So if you want a gift, you can give me the money and I'll buy you something. I will say though, you have some really good friends. They were willing to step up and pay for whatever bills you had to pay so that your bank account wouldn't stay in the red. That's really good friends in my opinion, and they really stepped up when it counted, especially when it looks like your parents would not have done the same. So hopefully your future birthdays are much better than this one, because being left with a $400 bill for your surprise birthday party is not exactly my version of fun. My fiance doesn't want to get married anymore, and at this point I'm at a loss and I'm not sure what to do. I have been engaged to my partner for 2.5 years, and
we've been together for 5 in total. We also have been living together for 4 years. I'm a 30-year-old female and he is 35. When we started trying to wedding plan after our engagement in 2020, he began to slow things down. He pointed to his student debt as one reason not to rush. He suggested that we wait until post-pandemic before booking anything for the wedding. And honestly, all of these were really sensible ideas that at the time I agreed with. So I took his lead and I just waited. But since then, the goalposts have kept moving. First, he wanted to wait until 2021 to try and do anything. Then the date suddenly moved to 2022. And worst of all, I had bridesmaids in mind of who I wanted to be in my wedding. And there were venue quotes that were available. My wedding dress was already picked out and he knew all of this. So I was really unsure as to what was happening. But then he drops the news on me and I'm absolutely flabbergasted. He revealed to me that he didn't want to get married at all. He wanted to be with me forever. He was deeply committed to me. He just had an issue with marriage. And although we had talked about marriage several times before getting engaged, which by the way, these conversations were always instigated by him, he didn't realize how negatively he felt about it in reality. He doesn't like the institution. He doesn't like the ceremony. He doesn't like being the center of attention. And the option of just eloping to avoid any kind of fanfare wouldn't be okay with him. We got engaged because he didn't want us to break up. For me, marriage is important. It is a core value to me. And having had lots of meaningless boyfriends, I wanted to make a commitment to someone in a way that I never had before. But I love him and I wanted to find a compromise. But every time I try to approach the subject, I've been shut down. I wait patiently for months and I ask him how he's feeling and what he thinks about what we should do, but he never gives me an answer, ever. And now it just leads to endless fighting. Eventually, all of this came to a boiling point because we went on holiday and did a couple's photo shoot. The photos were gorgeous and I thought it was a really fun experience. But afterwards, he said he hated it. He claimed that he hated all of the photos and was afraid I would show them to people and they would think that we were married. So he said I wasn't allowed to show them to anyone, which is just crazy to me. Overall, he just ruined the experience for me entirely. It wasn't so much about the photos, but the fact he actively, unnecessarily spoiled something small that he knew that I enjoyed. Now I can't even look at the photos without getting upset. I am worried that he has no intention of compromising. I feel that I am making a fundamental compromise by agreeing to take marriage off the table. I am open to lots of alternatives, but he isn't willing to concretely explore anything. I've asked if we can go to couples counseling or something, but he's always said no. I have been in limbo for this for about 3 years. I don't think I can take much more of this. And the longer it goes, the more resentment and sadness I feel in my life. What should I do? There's a lot of red flags in this story. This guy only got engaged to you to prevent you from leaving him. That's a massive red flag in my opinion. And that's honestly super sketchy. I mean, who does that? And it sounds like you've both discussed getting married pretty much in detail. I mean, you even have a wedding dress picked out. How does he not know that this is something you definitely want? So he doesn't want to get married, but he also doesn't want you to leave? That just does not sound okay to me. So if I was in your shoes, I would definitely take a good hard look at this relationship because based on what you've described, this sounds incredibly toxic and this is not something that you need in your life. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.